Oh boy, I've been thinking of making this video since at least January, and it was meant to be a really short and sweet video, but given that this is about a game series I really care about, good god, this video is going to be long. Also, this video is written in a way that's intended for people who has never played Yakuza, or at least Yakuza 3, so if I sound like I'm treating you like a baby who has never touched anything that wasn't an iPad, I'm really sorry. This video contains spoilers for Yakuza 3, Kiwami 3, and Dark Ties. If you care about them, yeah, whatever. Quick disclaimer, some parts of this video will contain sensitive subjects like assault, so if you're not feeling comfortable about them, please skip the respective sections that I'm putting on the screen right now. I will warn you again when I arrive to those topics. Anyways, let's start. Video game remakes, just like movie remakes, they're controversial and usually very mixed. It's a classic tale where sometimes the remakes don't match up to the original. Very rarely do they ever succeed in being considered to be as good, if not better, than the original, especially in maintaining the original game's art direction while trying not to ruin by slapping on an ugly lighting overhaul or replant it. I mean, look at Resident Evil 3 and 4's remake. One is considered to be the absolute best remake a game could ever get, and the other one trips and falls off a staircase into a pool of shit. The Yakuza games are kinda like this. Yakuza, or Like a Dragon, is one of my most favorite series ever, starting with the first Yakuza game on the PS2 in 2005, made by the geniuses behind RemoveKagawa Studios, or RGG, I'm definitely mispronouncing that. Yeah, it's been around since I was 1 goddamn years old, but the series didn't really do so well internationally at the start.
Kill this arrogant motherfucker. Shut the fuck up.
You gon' squeal like a bitch, motherfucker.
Do it! Fuck off, you
We're
bastard!
eating roast pig tonight, boys.
Kill his ass!
Yeah. Put him out of his misery.
I suggest you listen to me. I suggest you blow me.
10 years in the joint made you a fucking pussy.
Were you someone's prison, bitch? Retarded or just deaf?
Fuck you!
But that's a whole other story that's too long for this video. The point is, Yakuza 0 is one of the few games that can arguably be considered as almost one of the most perfect video games ever because it's such a good game. All the side activities, characters, and story is so memorable. Like, you have the serious Yakuza conspiracy to claim a tiny piece of real estate that would later play a huge role in future games, but then for most of the game, you're either running a cabaret club or a real estate company, talking to people in their underworld while a giant dude robs you of your money, then you go and sing karaoke. That's how good Yakuza 0 is. I'm sure I don't have to explain any further on what defines Yakuza's identity, but there's also Lost Judgment, another game that's as close as we can get to perfection. For those who don't know, Yakuza has a noir-inspired detective spin-off called Judge Eyes or Judgment, depending on whether you live in Japan or not, featuring Takuya Kimura as Takayuki Yagami, who is super famous in Japan. Lost Judgment is so good because of the story and the side content. One moment you're solving a murder case and uncovering a massive government conspiracy, and the next moment you're beating the shit out of school bullies while trying to get hip with the kids playing as a 40-year-old man. This is why Yakuza series is so good. I would yap about this series any day of the goddamn week. But the thing is, the Yakuza series has something all gamers fear: remasters and remakes. Also, just keep these two little names at the back of your head while you're watching this video. Masayoshi Yokoyama, the main writer for the series and current lead of RGG, plus Ryosuke Hori, another key player in the development of the Yakuza games. Given that this series is getting old now, like it's old enough to drink, there's some Yakuza games that didn't age well. The original Yakuza 3 has an entire sub-story that's just transphobic, which is ironic because it also features a very wholesome transgender sub-story, and Yakuza 4 has one of the main characters, Akiyama, make a pretty insensitive joke about rape, and also the Seijima scene. I don't have to bring that up, do I? Like I said, some things don't age too good, so it needs some light touching up or a total overhaul. Unfortunately, RGG's touch of quality is all over the place. In some parts, they make the best quality of life change ever, or some decent changes here and there, and then they completely fuck up the remaster for Yakuza 3. That's not even getting into Kiwami 1 and 2. Yeah, I love those two games, more so the second because of the Dragon Engine's ragdoll physics, but Kiwami 1 has some weird additions from the original PS2 game. There's a whole video by someone else documenting the changes, and Kiwami 2 is pretty infamous for cutting out an entire city district, and Kamurocho, the main setting of most of the Yakuza games, just has this ugly green filter. There is a reason why there's so many memes about green Kiwami 2. To be fair to them, from what I've seen, Kiwami 1 and 2 does at least try to maintain a lot of the old content and sub-stories, but I haven't really gotten the chance to emulate the old games, so I see Kiwami 1 and 2 being decent but flawed remakes rather than being downright trash or being able to replace the original PS2 games. For foreshadowing. Yakuza 3 up until recently was one of the more contentious entries in the series. Not really about the story, that's more of Yakuza 4 and 5's controversy, but more like the gameplay. It's definitely a revolution in Yakuza's gameplay and graphics jumping from the PS2 to the PS3. Except not really, I kinda lied there. That honor actually goes to Yakuza Kenzan that came out right before Yakuza 3, which has yet to be remastered or ported, but again, that's a whole other story. Yakuza 3 is the one we actually care about. The combat of Yakuza 3 is the most controversial thing about the game. Aside from that one transphobic sub-story, and all of us can go up and down debating on whether the combat of the game sucks or not. The thing is, Yakuza 3 is a 17-year-old game, but it's not that bad, and for a game that's pretty weak, it's still a very strong Yakuza entry, all things considered. What I mean is that while it doesn't stand as tall as the other entries, but whatever, I love it all the same, and it's still incredibly memorable. Like how broken everyone's English is.
There's no change in the plan.
So imagine the way people lost their minds when, at the 2025 RGG Summit, they announced Yakuza Kiwami 3.
Yeah! Oh my god. Oh, that's like the friend Bowling!
Oh my god. Remember how Kiryu and the local funny snake guy, Goromachima, got their own smaller Gaiden games? Remember the guy who did the Gates Raid promotion and said how there's no change in the plan? Oh my god, Mini's getting his own Gaiden game! Unfortunately, straight out of the gate, the announcement got a couple of small controversies. Definitely very small, nothing that major. Definitely not a joke about how RGG miscalculated and shot themselves in the foot like 500 times. Not everything from the original game is going to return to Kiwami 3, which is sad, but as long as the game is good, I can acquiesce to the changes. Revelations being gone is sad, but if I'm being honest, I hated doing the revelations. Laugh all you want at the cutscenes, yeah, they're goofy as hell, but I just wish they were just cutscenes like in Yakuza 0's Revelations, rather than being glorified QuickTime events that took the joy out of Revelations for me. It sucked. I hated having to pick and choose at the end. If I mess up, I have to do it again. I hate it. A lot of people were declaring that they weren't going to buy Kiwami 3 because of the removal of Revelations. I mean, if you're saying how you're not buying the remake not because of maybe pricing or the fact that the remake could be bad because of a single flawed, overhyped, and overrated feature, then I'm sorry, that reasoning is really fucking funny. Also, the announcement led to what is possibly the most poorly aged article about Kiwami 3 by James Daly, this random game journalist that I found. He said that the real worst game is Yakuza 4 instead of Yakuza 3 because of that scene with Saejima and Haruka. Yeah, you already know what I'm talking about. This is so funny to me, the article, not the scene, because this poor fucking gaming journalist didn't know how bad we were going to get it. I don't usually feel bad for gaming journalists because they usually dig their own graves, but holy hell, I feel so bad for James here. I'm so sorry this is how it turned out. That's just one small controversial change for Kiwami 3. What's the other controversies? Oh, celebrity recast? Oh, that's some interesting recasts. Rikia and Nakahara got changed. Okay, that is a little weird. I didn't really feel that deep of an emotional connection to Rikia, but I still thought his character was good. And I also really liked Nakahara. This old guy's guttural noises were really funny. I don't know, I kind of preferred it when he looked like a fat boomer instead of this new celebrity recast. He looks so kind. A guy who doesn't even look like he's made for the Yakuza life. It's nice that Kanda got his old voice actor back, like Nagumo from Yakuza 6, especially after the controversy of him actually going to a party held by the real life Yakuza. That happened. Anyway, so aside from those two, who else got recast? Who the fuck is this guy?
浜崎豪役を演じました香川照之でございます。
So Rikia, Nakahara, and Hamazaki were all recast to celebrities. This recast did get some backlash in Japan, mostly because Rikia's new actor apparently lacked a distinctive Okinawan look or charm or whatever, especially his accent, but I don't know about that, so I won't go on further on that detail. But Hamazaki's recast? Oh no! If you don't know, which might be the case if you watch me mostly for Roblox stuff, basically he went to one of those hostess clubs that are everywhere in Japan and assaulted two of the workers there. There were a few people that were saying that they should have just kept old Hamazaki's face and voice actor from the original, which I agree, but one problem, his old voice actor George Takahashi is a pedophile. And also he retired from voice acting and is a musician now, so it's not like you can just bring him back. I think it's really funny how the Japanese fandom's critique of Kagawa's casting is that he doesn't look threatening enough to be a Yakuza. Like they keep saying how this dude looks like an ordinary businessman and not creepy enough to be Hamazaki, which is deeply ironic if you know the entire story, if not outright horrific. And okay, it's not really ironic at all, what the hell. You know what, next time just keep the face but just change the voice actor. I meant old Hamazaki. Actually, better yet, just kill the fucker. I don't care about him. Oh yeah, they did that in Yakuza 4. There was an entire protest done against the game because of Kagawa's casting, mostly in the form of RemoveKagawa. It started on Twitter, or at least I think so. Yeah, at least one good thing came out of Elon Musk's playground, but it spread to other platforms like Instagram and got tons of news coverage. And a lot of famous Yakuza YouTubers like Devil Leon 7 and Snowy, I don't know how to pronounce that channel name. The thing is though, even with all of this, you still had some people interested and even excited for Kiwami 3. Unfortunately, I was kind of one of them, something I really regret in hindsight, because even though I did refund my pre-order for Kiwami 3 at one point, I fell back into temptation close to the game's release and decided to give RGG a chance. If they weren't going to remove Kagawa, then that's still bad, but if the remake is at least decent, then Hamazaki's recast will be my only real issue with the game. I don't support it obviously, but sure, it will knock some pegs off the score for me, because it meant they consciously made the decision to keep the guy in the game, so it doesn't make up for the fact. Despite that, the controversies of the game slowly got worse and worse as the release date crept closer. Leaks were already happening, especially after the demo release. The whole ending of the game was leaked, which I believe was in an interview by Yokoyama. Yeah, remember that guy? He did mention he was trying to take the game's writing in a new direction in one of the many interviews made before the game was released. They also announced they were going to delist the original Yakuza 3 remastered from Steam, which is horrible news. It's what they also did to Yakuza 0, Kiwami 1 and 2, where they updated those games with absolute goddamn tripe. I don't even want to start with the director's cut. Oh yeah, the demo. I forgot Kiwami 3 had a demo, god damn it. It wasn't that long, just Riki's fight and a story fight with a random grunt boss, but it was a quick glimpse into hell itself. Like, I thought it was cool at the time because you could charge every single attack now. Holy wow! The Dark Tides demo was also included, but being honest, I wasn't as impressed with it as the other demo. Playing as Mine is cool and all, being able to control the gayest man alive and do his emo awakening, but playing as him, it wasn't anything special. It felt really restricted. And also, it was probably a sign that Dark Tides was not going to be as big as a Gaiden game, despite what Ryosuke Hori said about how the game was going to be 15 hours long. Why did you lie? By the way, the last time they did a big flashy demo like Infinite Wealth's one, which was packaged with Kiryu's Gaiden game, the entire soundtrack leaked. Great job. It's not the first time it happened. Yakuza 6's entire game actually got leaked because some idiot at Sega released the full game instead of the demo. So with all these controversial changes behind Kiwami 3, like the recast and the gutted features and also the pre-release reviews being not good, Jesus Christ, they gave a very grim outlook for the game, but either way, Kiwami 3 was finally released on February 12, 2026. All of these previews and leaks are bad, but does the game stand on its own? No. In a past video of mine, specifically the Horizon Blue one, I talked about how much that game made me reconsider my stance on Sensara. In the case of Kiwami 3, it made me go back and replay Yakuza 3 Remastered, and I've never had more fun in my life playing Yakuza 3, and that should tell you how bad my time with Kiwami 3 was. This game is so baffling. They added as much new content as they did with cutting old content. I thought those pre-release reviews were exaggerating, but no, they weren't lying. So much shit got removed. I didn't really believe they had actually got over 70 sub-stories, over 100 Yakuza 3 sub-stories in the past, down to almost 30, but they did! With the amount of shit they changed and replaced with something inferior, it's really hard for me to collect and form my thoughts on the series, but the main point is that it's so disappointing how this is the way RGG decided to handle things. With the amount of stuff they changed, I kinda can't go over all of it, it's just too much to cover, but I'll still go over the stuff that bothered me the most. There's gonna be some spoilers.
I still have Kiwami 3 installed, but I don't want to record all of the cutscenes and all of the conversations, so I'm just going to use someone else's clips for this. I hate this game.
This game looks and plays like shit.
Unacceptable condition! Unacceptable!
The game looking really horrible is a bit of an exaggeration because the game does look fine if you remove all the ugly filters. RGG seems to have forgotten that over-tuning the filters doesn't mean the game is going to look good. Because look at Pirate Yakuza. God damn it, it's so bright. The game would blind you faster than looking at a nuke going off. Kiwami 3's graphics are kind of ass, but it's mostly because they over-tuned the filters to make it look like you have eye strain. At least when you're playing in Okinawa, because in Kamurocho, everything is fucking blue. This is especially weird if you play the demo where Ryukyu is bright enough to blind you for life. But then when you start a sub-story and a cutscene plays, the filter is just gone. We're ready to go! Come on, I want to get blinded! There's also issues with how the water looked like slime at the start, but in all fairness, they did make it less painful to look like after Backlash, which is a good change that I barely noticed, so maybe that wasn't the most noticeable change after all. Okay, since RGG finally got our attention, we'd like to ask them to do the same to Kagawa. Oh, for fuck's sake, he's still in the game. It's like they saw Kiwami 2 and all of the fans talking about how green that game is, so they went about overcorrecting it, so now this shit looks like Bikini Bottom.
Here we see Bikini Bottom, teeming with life, home of one of my favorite creatures, SpongeBob SquarePants.
This is why you install filterless mods. I completely missed this and I don't know where to put it, but in most of the Yakuza games after 6, I guess this is more about exploration, but still, you can bring street fights inside the Millennium Tower and use this to toss people off the second floor. It's so funny, especially given that the bouncer missions in Kiwami 2 have several fights take place in the Millennium Tower, which they kept up to Lost Judgment and even animated the escalators and made your character's legs snap to the moving escalators accurately. They disabled the ability to fight and the animated escalators in Kiwami 3. Okay, RGG.
It's fucking disabled. They don't follow you. Oh my fucking god.
Downtown Ryukyu also had its map downsized. Parts of Hatsumachi Street were consolidated into one, and the northeasternmost part of the street was removed while parts of the south was expanded. The changes are so weird comparing between Yakuza 3 and Kiwami 3's Ryukyu map. The comparisons are now all over the place, and they also closed down the building where you could have gotten a unique street fight intro where you throw a guy into a building and absolutely wreck the window. There's also character customization. This was actually a highly requested feature in Lost Judgment since there were disguises, so they went about with adding a full customization system that lets you change makeup, glasses, hairstyles, pants, shoes, and shirts. It got expanded on in Pirate Yakuza where Majima's clothing will change depending on which style he's using, Mad Dog or Sea Dog, but here they tuned it down a little bit by making it so you change clothing when going between Kamurocho and Okinawa. I'd like this more if Kiwami 3 wasn't so fucking bad. What I did instead was that I set Kiryu's new style that replaced his original Yakuza 3 fit to Kamurocho while he gets to wear his classic red one in Okinawa. I don't know, I kind of prefer if Kiryu didn't wear that gaudy ass suit, even though it's iconic. It's all very secondary though, so you know what, let's finally get into the meat of why this game is so bad.
This game's combat is so shit, I didn't even record most of it, so some of the stuff you're gonna be seeing is filler stuff from when I was playing this game modded after I beat everything. Holy hell, this is so bad.
With what I said earlier about the graphic, it hasn't always been the strongest suit for the Yakuza series, which you can mostly see in the artistic exaggeration of facial expressions in the early games and also them focusing on the game itself. I already implied it, but the combat is bad. Kiwami 3, I mean. There's been a rise in videos lately from other people, March 2026 as of writing and recording this script, talking about how they actually like the combat and it isn't as bad as everyone says.
We did get a much better combat system in Kiwami 3, not like the bar is too high to not accomplish that, but Kiwami 3's combat is so much better than you think.
No, it's fucking not. It's worse than Yakuza 3.
Yeah, okay, the combat isn't bad and it's acquired taste like Yakuza 3, even though Kiwami 3's combat system is the utter evisceration and destruction of everything that was set in Lost Judgment. What part of this game's combat is good? I cannot believe I'm saying this, but Yakuza 3's combat is unironically better, and that's because Kiwami 3 guts every good addition made since Lost Judgment. Aside from the Lao Kalon boss fight, that one is still bad. I will give RGG this. The new additions are actually serviceable, but that's not good enough. Just because it's decent enough to pass doesn't mean it's as good as what they had before, especially given that these guys made fucking Lost Judgment. Kiryu's dragon style is a super weird amalgamation of his fighting movesets. It takes elements from Kiryu's original fighting moves from Yakuza 1 to 5 that they kept in 0 and Kiwami 1, but it also borrows stuff from Kiryu's newer style in the Dragon Engine that was featured in 6, Kiwami 2, and Gaiden. I kinda like this change because I never got used to Kiryu's Dragon Engine style, so being able to combo Kiryu's old moves was so good despite the combat being really bad. Look, I know some people like Kiryu's newer style in the Dragon Engine games, but the classic one is irreplaceable, at least to me. You can't fix what wasn't broken, and I really miss Kiryu's old style because it's just better. It's a fucking shame they haven't brought back all of the good moves. The one thing I will never understand is why they never brought back the most iconic move in the game aside from the Tiger Drop. The Komaki Parry. This move is so cool. Not everyone has used it, but once you've executed a Komaki Parry at least once in your life, you can't get that satisfying stomach crunch out of your head. Yeah, Tiger Drop Ryuji's balls all you want, but the Komaki Parry is famous for a really good reason, that being its sound design and how good it was. It stuns the guy and gives you free hits, and it's also why people use it to defend the atrocity that is Yakuza 3's combat. And no, it's not about the Blockusa. The Komaki Parry got removed in 6 and didn't reappear in Kiwami 2 or even Gaiden. I was so disappointed when I found that the Komaki Parry wasn't coming back. What's even weirder is that the Komaki Knockback wasn't added either, because it was in Kiwami 2 and Gaiden. That being said, Ryukyu style has a similar move that lets you do what the Komaki Knockback was meant to do, so what? What the fuck are you doing, RGG? Ryukyu style is if you took Majima's Sea Dog style, which was actually fun to use and had such a huge variety of ways to utilize, and also turned you into a pirate, and then they neutered it. They killed the Ryukyu style. Ryukyu style is supposed to be based on Okinawan martial arts or self-defense techniques, I'm not quite sure. It's apparently part of Okinawan history, which is cool that they featured it, it's just not good though. Ryukyu style is so goddamn slow, every attack is a slow wind-up and recovering from a combo takes so goddamn long. Every attack, charged or not, is Kiryu pulling out a different Okinawan weapon, and they're all so bad and slow. I'm already repeating myself here, but they're slow, impractical on some bosses, and honestly, Dragon style is better, and also Ryukyu style is bad overall. I don't have to emphasize it any further.
God damn, it's fucking hell.
Going back a little bit, ever since Yakuza 6, Komaki hasn't been shown that much, if at all. Like, they wiped him out of existence like so many characters in Yakuza Kiwami 3. But he's still important to Kiryu's development as a disciplined fighter, so they feature him in Infinite Wealth, which makes his removal even more strange. I'm bringing this up because in so many of the older titles, you were supposed to train with certain characters that would get you more skills, like Mac in Yakuza 3, who helped you do the chases, Miss Tatsu in Yakuza 0, Suzuki Komaki in Yakuza 5, who is Komaki's grandson, and Saigo from Yakuza 4. Komaki was one such trainer, so it's sad it's removed, but given that you had to drop everything just to learn the skill, I kinda understand why they moved away from trainers starting from Yakuza 6 and only brought them back if it was for a remake like Kiwami 2. It was to streamline the process. I completely understand it because you do have to sacrifice your time just to learn something, and training with Komaki in Yakuza 0 with Majima, that was not fun. Kiwami 3 did bring back the training system, and it's really bad, mostly because it's being performed by who the fuck is this guy? I don't even know how the hell they even introduced Miya, whatever the hell you pronounce this cunt's name. I hate this guy. He feels like a goddamn self-insert. He replaced all of the trainers in Yakuza 3. That being Minamida, a guy who has the virtual reality machine. Komaki, the true trainer. Yunashiro, the weapons master for Yakuza 3's old weapon system. And also Mac, who I already mentioned. Okay, well, Miya teaches you both Dragon and Ryukyu style, and Kiryu treats him as an old friend who he trusts as deeply as someone like Makoto Date or the host from Stardust, that being Yuya and Kazuki. I don't give a shit about Miya.
I don't give a fucking shit.
There was no real opportunity to expand on his character. They treat it as if Miya and Kiryu has known each other since the beginning, and it sucks. His training sucks, it's really bad, and also the super famous Tiger Drop that was taught by Komaki, like there is a reason why it's called the Komaki Tiger Drop. It is changed to the Miyazato Fata whatever the fuck Tiger Drop. This fraud stole Komaki's move. Keep in mind, the previous mainline title was Infinite Wealth, and there was an entire bucket list sub-story where Kiryu reconnects with Komaki even though he's under a pseudonym. They spent all of that time reintroducing Komaki after leaving him out after Yakuza 6 and then proceeded to erase him again. Fuck you. What makes Miya feel more like a self-insert is how involved he is in every story. Not in Dark Ties, no, but everything somehow manages to tie him into it, no matter the story story. He teaches you Ryukyu style, and after Kiryu's orphanage gets wrecked in the last chapter of the story, he's the one who rallies to help rebuild the orphanage. Please go away. On the topic of training masters, I gotta readdress Mac. I hated Revelations, or at least going around to find them. If it just played the cutscenes without the QTEs, I would have been fine with it. But even then, I really loved Mac. He's a silly guy, and he just loves photography, and he teaches you the tracing minigame that improves Kiryu's stamina. Don't ask how it does, but even with the Revelations gone, they could have still kept it, because there is an entire mechanic in the game where you do the la friend, or whatever it's called, and instead of having the president of the company do it, which is Lady Aizawa, I don't know what her name is, you could have reintroduced Mac as like fan service instead of wiping him out of existence. Since I'm going to have to explain it, the la friends mechanic is reused from Infinite Wealth and Pirate Yakuza Aloha Links. It doesn't really do anything substantial aside from rewarding you with bonus items from making friends, which is cool or not because I don't have any friends. Unless you watch my videos on FNAF, Roblox, and the Burger games, you'd know that isn't true. Fuck, I didn't think this through. Anyways, it's the same thing here. Make la friends to unlock bonus rewards, and I'm pretty sure I did not claim a single reward from this. That's how little I care about this mechanic. Again, like Komaki and pretty much most training masters since Yakuza 6, he hasn't reappeared much and was also actually meant to reappear in the Asian remake, so it's sad. Also, if you wanted people to actually care for self-insert Miyazato Fucko, maybe link him to Komaki in some way or form. Or better yet, bring up Yonashiro was right there! Hey, it's Beta from the future here. I'm doing a quick rewrite because this section turned into a 3,000 word long yap, which I didn't realize was too long when I started editing, so it's clear that RGG wants to evolve Lost Judgment's combat further, but unlike what they did in Gaiden and Pirate Yakuza, which pushed it forward, they went backwards. They went backwards with Kiwami 3. So here is a list that summarizes my main point about the really weird change they did to Kiwami 3's combat, and I don't know why they did this. This is really confusing shit. Limited heat bars, a nerf from Pirate Yakuza when the beat 'em up games before that had plenty of heat bars. Kiwami 3 lets you add one extra, but it's not that much. Again, from Pirate Yakuza, there's only two styles. One is melee based, Mad Dog Dragon style, the other being weapons based, Sea Dog and Ryukyu. They've been doing this since Gaiden when Lost Judgment, not including the Kaido files, had 4 styles. Where did the last 2 go? Kiwami 3 neutered the amount of heat actions. Lots of contextual heat actions like environmental or location specific heat actions are just gone. In exchange, you get these cool smooth camera transitions from combat to heat actions that quickly wears off when you realize these camera movements are buggy as hell. The pineapple heat action is funny, even though miserable cunts on Twitter tries to convince you otherwise. Dragon Boost mode is a neutered extreme heat mode from Yakuza 6. It doesn't really increase your damage, doesn't enable new heat actions, and also has a really shittily executed dragon finisher heat action that deals so little damage. Dragon Boost mode makes you do this weird thing where Kiryu does a finishing hold move from the original Yakuza game, but the execution is awkward since it automatically does it for you instead of having to manually do it by pressing the grab button after a heavy finisher. Taunting got screwed up, but there's too many things to go over, so I'll try to summarize it. Essentially, the enemies have a fear and anger state that has been in the game series since at least Yakuza 3, at least I think so. Doesn't include Yakuza 6 and Kiwami 2. Kiwami 3 removed the fear state, enemies only become angry, your taunt will anger all enemies at once, you don't get an input on whether you want to do that or not, like in Lost Judgment and Gaiden. And also taunting has a weird bug where enemies freeze up and stop attacking you. It's very easy to replicate, just find an enemy holding a weapon. The mechanics of juggling enemies from Judgment is weird now and can be easily interrupted, and also it's harder to even start a juggle now. Bosses have a weird new aura system that makes them hard to stagger, stun, or knock down, and there's a way to break it by doing enough damage. It's inconsistent and the bosses regain aura really quickly. Mortal attacks or ultimate attacks from Judgment was completely ruined. Lost Judgment also introduced mortal reversals, which were also ruined. Mortal attacks are now indicated by the enemies flashing white like they're Sans fucking Undertale, but instead of doing a quick step dodge or pressing a button to activate a special mortal reversal move, you just perform a quick step attack to counter it. Gaiden and Pirate Yakuza added in an extra mortal reversal attack that would deal more damage, so Kiwami 3 removing this is so weird. It's also an upgrade, but I think that's only for Mine.
What?
For anyone who is excited for Purgatory's Coliseum from Yakuza 3, sorry to disappoint, it's a really shitty version of Gaiden's Coliseum. There's no special tournament conditions like in Yakuza 3, and just boring one-on-one boss fights or the really unbalanced triple boss fight.
They fuck, the Coliseum. Oh no.
The long battles and boss battle dynamic intro sequences are really boring. It's just the characters doing stupid dances instead of throwing dramatic punches, and some of the cinematics are missing details like how Lau Ka-long's hidden blade underneath his shoe is missing now. And also the scene where you hump Kanda is missing sound effects and its filter. They changed the boss health bar to only have 2 colors. Again, it's like in Yakuza 6 and Ishin Kiwami, where all of the bosses have a really thick singular red health bar, while every other game since the first have multicolored health bars, which was kept up until Pirate Yakuza. The original Ishin had this. Come on, why did you remove this again? Joe Amon's secret boss fight is really bad. You have to beat the game to get his fight instead of replaying the sub-stories. And also the barber fucked up his hair again. Why do you still look like shit Amon? The game is buggy in general, like incorrect text and unfinished subtitles, which was later patched.
It's fucking real.
Graphical issues, Kiryu flying, Kiryu disappearing, literal softlocks, whatever the hell this is. And all of this proves that Kiwami 3 is far less polished than Kiwami 1 and 2 combined. Yokoyama has gone on record to say that Yakuza Kiwami 3's combat was designed to accommodate as many players as possible, mostly with accessibility in mind. I understand this sentiment because some players are really stupid and need immersion breaking yellow paint to guide them, like me sometimes. Apparently, Ryusuke Hori isn't exactly a gamer, so I guess it accommodates people who aren't exactly hardcore Yakuza fans or hardcore gamers in general, which also includes casual gaming channels on YouTube that just mash the button to win. And even then, they still beat Judgment without ever switching styles, so come the fuck on, RGG. You don't have to insult our intelligence. Kiwami 3 messes with Yakuza 3's story pretty badly. I'm really conflicted on this part because on the one hand, there are some really bad changes, like real bad, especially with the retcons, but I won't lie, some of the new additions are actually very substantial and quite decent, even if some of them are like that. I don't really want to go into too much detail about Yakuza 3's story. It's too big, there's too much to go through. To make short work of it, Kiryu retires to Okinawa after the events of Yakuza 2, but the land he's sitting on is involved in some huge political scandal for the land by the Japanese government. The Tojo clan is involved, and then that snowballs into a plot by the CIA to lure a fucking terrorist group called Black Monday led by Andre Richardson, and there's a subplot about Kiryu's adoptive father Shintaro Kazuma coming back to life, but no, it's actually his twin brother Joji. And also Mine is gay. He is super gay for Daigo. That too. There's also some other subplots about the Orphanage and Ryudo family, which I really liked, and also of course Rikiya dies. I didn't really feel that sad, but you can still feel the weight of Takaya Kuroda's performance as Kyu breaks down crying when the kid has been taken care of fucking dies in front of him. Jesus.
Oi, Rikiya! Oi. お前何勝手に死んでんだよ、おい！俺は許さねえぞ！おい！リキヤ！返事をしろ、リキヤ！リキヤ！
It's too bad Kiwami 3 takes all of that and throws it into the dumpster.
Oh my fucking god, this game is so close and I'm so sick and tired of this game.
Some of the new additions are kind of cool, like the very first chapter involves the Majima and the Majima Construction Company a little bit more as a continuity thing from Yakuza 2 or Kiwami 2, since they had the whole clan minigame. Then there's also new cutscenes that contextualizes Rikiya's growing respect for Kiryu after the kid gets shit rocked by a depressed old man, and also more Hamazaki dealing with the Snake Flower Triads. Oh god, it's more Kagawa! His voice does not fucking fit Hamazaki whatsoever. It's like he's trying so hard to come off as intimidating, especially early on when Hamazaki makes a bunch of racist remarks against a random Chinese restaurant owner, and his voice actor Takahashi does sell his performance way better.
中国の包丁はよく切れるな。これだったら人間の首も真っ二つだ。
Kagawa in this scene sounds like a chain smoker and one of those PSAs where they show you a smoking victim with no jaw.
中国の包丁はよく切れるな。これだったら人間の首も真っ二つだ。
I didn't mean to be insensitive. That's kind of how it sounds like. I like the new Hamazaki scenes better if it was literally anyone else playing Hamazaki and not fucking Kagawa, but I can't separate this game from him anymore. The damage is done, and the Kagawa controversy being the way it is also does something incredibly messed up in Kiwami 3. This part of the video will include some extremely heavy topics, so if you're not comfortable, skip to the next section. If you're still here, I'll be moving on. There are several new cutscenes and battle scenarios in Chapter 7 of Kiwami 3, and look, I've hated this game so far, but if there's one positive thing I had to say, it's that the new additions in Chapter 7 are actually really good, except for one scene, and it's unfortunately ruined somewhat by RGG's being so tone deaf with Kiwami 3. So Kanda is a big fat hedonistic asshole who's the third and last patriarch of the Nishikiyama family. You know, the Yakuza family of Kiryu's dead sworn brother Akira Nishikiyama. For those who don't know, Kiryu really misses his brother and only remembers the good memories he had of Nishiki from the 1980s, basically the events of Yakuza 0. Obviously, Nishiki turned evil in Yakuza 1, but it was because of his failure to save his sister, Yuko, and constantly being berated by others and compared to Kiryu. That drove him down that path, which is why the Nishikiyama family by Yakuza 2 and 3 has such colorful figures like Kanda and Shindo, who are both really despicable characters. Shindo is kind of a flat character. The most memorable thing about him is that he loves mature and older women, like he really loves Daigo's mother, holy fucking based. But Kanda, Kiwami 3 makes him a lot worse than he did in the original Yakuza 3. Before the story of Yakuza 3, it's kind of elaborated on in Dark Ties. He was in prison for sexual assault, and so he got locked up for the events of Yakuza 2. When he got out of prison and got back into the Yakuza life, he became the patriarch of the Nishikiyama family with the help of Mine, but he didn't really change as an individual, and so his favorite activity, which is shown in an earlier cutscene actually, is him taking random women off the streets and massaging them. The euphemism is a little strange, but it paints him in a already very sleazy picture, and in the original Yakuza 3, he's just a pervert, a really bad pervert. Now, take that, but also account for the fact that Kiryu beat the shit out of him in an earlier chapter as well. Or humping the shit out of him, more like. Kanda is obviously pissed. In the original Yakuza 3, you only fight him once and then Mine kills him. In Kiwami 3 though, Kanda is obviously mad and humiliated, and they show you a cutscene of the Nishikiyama family office in the middle of one of Kanda's very loud massage sessions. I don't know how to convey this other than shock, but what happens next is that Kanda, getting angry at his defeat at Kiryu's hands, strangles the victim to death and leaves her body to be disposed by his soldiers. And the worst part is that RGG fully modeled this victim. You never get to see the entirety of her body, but you do see where Kanda strangled her to death, and the model itself is even worse. Her entire body is bruised and she's also naked without the explicit nudity details. So in those last moments, Kanda bruised, assaulted, and beat a woman to death. And this is for a character who committed sexual assault before the events of the game, and in the original Yakuza 3 was meant to be a funny, goofy, incompetent asshole. I'm really conflicted on this scene. On the one hand, RGG has occasionally gone out of their way to show some really disgusting scenes, especially brutal murder, which emphasizes the dramatic parts of the story. But those scenes were always showing the brutal ways of criminal life almost entirely consisting of assassination attempts and, in a couple cases, civilian casualties. But Kanda's new scene being in Kiwami 3, combined with the Kagawa controversy, I find this in some way to be very tonally deaf, especially in a game that already treats a sensitive subject such as this in such a flimsy way. I'd normally praise this chapter sequence more because they added a new section where you get to fight Hasebe and Kanda again, since they both only got one boss fight in the original game. Plus, there is an entire cutscene of Kiryu being absolutely furious with who Kanda is as a person. I don't want to underscore how much I love this new scene with Kiryu calling Kanda a scumbag who has ruined Nishiki's legacy by leading the family to doom, but the scene that happens beforehand, I feel conflicted.
余計な手間取らせやがって。てめえが錦山組の組長ってのがそもそもの間違いだ。あいつの大門にこれ以上泥塗るんじゃねえ。バカ野郎が。
Also, there is another really bad addition to Kiwami 3's story, but it's thankfully way less upsetting, and it's Yokoyama and maybe a few other writers not knowing how to write shit for some reason. The leaked ending that was found in the Kiwami 3 demo was grim, but at the start, I didn't trust it because it was only subtitles and a few screenshots that got leaked. No video proof of new cutscenes, and it retconned Yakuza 3's ending and also contains some stuff in Dark Tie's ending. The original Yakuza 3 ending is this, but keep in mind this isn't going to be a really good summary of it. I might like Yakuza 3's story, but I'm really bad at summarizing stories in general, so sorry if I get some details wrong, or all of it wrong, because Kiwami 3 is giving me early onset dementia. Mine reveals to Kiryu that he had grown up an orphan and had a foster father who died and encouraged Mine to keep going. But the young Mine was rejected by society, so he ended up becoming a cold, ambitious man who only cared for power and wealth. The reason why he wanted to kill Daigo after the chairman got hospitalized is because Mine loves Daigo, with the latter being the only guy to show him some form of almost unconditional kindness with little to no strings attached, and seeing Daigo in a coma was so upsetting that Mine concluded that if Daigo isn't going to wake up if ever, then killing him is a mercy. Kiryu stops Mine from doing that, and what made him realize everything he did in the pursuit of wealth and power was ultimately pointless, if not completely selfish and against what Daigo would have possibly wanted, was when his hot secretary Katase, yeah, she's hot, but she only appears in like 2 cutscenes before disappearing forever, as per RGG tradition, caused him not out of concern of where he had been. She only caused him to inform about some business deal.
Wanna join my free gift card giveaway? Subscribe to my channel, like the video.
After everything he did to try to ruin Kiryu's life and, in his own twisted views, saving Daigo from misery and securing the Tojo clan's future through collaborating with literal terrorists, he ends up being betrayed in the end when Richardson shows up to tie up loose ends. Daigo wakes up and guns the Black Monday goons down. He tends to gun people down whenever he appears. Mine apologizes to Kiryu and Daigo one last time, and despite them two trying to convince him to stop, Mine fucking drags Richardson and falls to their deaths willingly. I don't know if destroying an orphan can be redeemed, especially when you get one of your underlings to smash Mikio's head in with a sledgehammer. That guy lives, by the way. But I guess in some way taking down a global financial arms dealing terrorist is some measure of paying for your sins. Unless you played Infinite Wealth, which shows you it didn't really work out. Okay, maybe it did because Richardson isn't evil anymore.
Nowadays, that room's only good for storage.
Mine's taken
If you ever need a roof over your head.
With all that resolved, Kiryu finally gets to retire to Okinawa once more and is about to return to the orphanage with Haruka, but in Kamurocho, Hamazaki reveals himself to be alive and he's really angry at Kiryu. The Snake Flower tries to destroy the Hamazaki family because Lau Kalong quote-unquote died, and so Hamazaki blames Kiryu for ruining his life, and despite everything that Hamazaki did to try to ruin Kiryu, Kiryu still offers him a hand of redemption. Hamazaki takes his hand. I lied. He actually stabs the motherfucker. Kiryu obviously survives in the post-credit scene and he's still running the orphanage, recovering from his wounds. It's a really happy ending, at least until Yakuza 4, 5, and for all of the future titles. Uh-oh, Kiryu, you're on the run now. So, did they keep this in Kiwami 3? Yes, they did. They kept most of it, which is surprising for a game that retconned and removed everything from Yakuza 3. And also, I lied, they retconned this shit too, god fucking damn it. So in Kiwami 3, Mine throws him off the roof with Richardson, as per usual. That's still retained. The part they didn't keep was what happens in Kamurocho, the moment when Kagawa gets Kiryu and leaves him to bleed out in the streets like this is the UK or something. Unless you really can't tell what they're going to show you, you might already know what's about to fucking happen.
一人だけ勝ち逃げはさせねえぞ。
やめておいた方がいい。彼を刺したところで俺らが浮かび上がることはない。
Mine survives. This motherfucker fell 60 floors. This hospital is the tallest goddamn building in all of Japan. And this isn't even a weird Kiwami 3 exclusive change. This was a weird detail they kept from the original Yakuza 3.
There's 60 fucking floors to this building.
This hospital was always 60 floor. No one seems to have ever noticed this, and this detail is so important in factoring in how ridiculous his survival is, because Hamazaki fucking notes how it's insane that Mine even survived being splattered on concrete. If you know how ridiculous this survival is, why would you even write this?
Also, Kiryu shoots down a fighter jet. I just thought of bringing that up right now. It's completely ridiculous, but since this is Kiwami 3, this is just a complete fucking nothing burger. I'm not even surprised by this. I'm not even like doing a soy face. I fucking watched it with the most poker face ever. I don't care about this change because this game is so shit.
The survival is actually the least egregious thing in this ending. Mine convinces Hamazaki to not plunge that knife into Kiryu and says some bullshit that was antithetical to the original story of Yakuza 3. Too long didn't watch, Mine is yapping some shit about how Kiryu is living some sort of false reality, a fake happiness with his orphanage, which Mine considers a living hell because Kiryu is apparently holding onto fake principles. No, he isn't a virtuous man apparently who saw redemption in people even as despicable as Hamazaki or Mine. He's actually a man who loves and thrives being violent. So what the hell was that point of Mine and Kiryu's final conversation on the hospital rooftop? The conclusion Mine reaches with Hamazaki is this: prevent Kiryu from interfering in Tojo clan affairs. Don't ever let him leave the orphanage. Keep him contained there like he's an SCP Foundation anomaly or more like an SP writer. Wait, you don't do that. As Kiryu leaves Kamurocho with Haruka, not knowing of the two creepy cunts watching them, Mine offers Hamazaki to join a super secret organization run by a man known as the Fixer. Look, I did say I wrote this script in a way to help communicate what's wrong with this game to anyone who has never played Yakuza 3 or a Yakuza game in their life, but let me explain this. In Yakuza 6, a man who has deep connections to the Japanese government named Minoru Daidoji has a deep secret conspiracy where he poured endless embezzled funds building a useless Mark II upgrade to the infamous Yamato battleship, which was also completely pointless because World War II ended. It being revealed would be an international PR disaster and an absolute national nightmare of epic proportions to deal with, but that's not relevant. Daidoji has a secret faction of super spies with insane sci-fi gadgets, which Kiryu joins after he fakes his death in Yakuza 6 to protect the orphanage and become a full-fledged agent in Gaiden. The Daidoji faction is an admittedly pretty cool spy faction that should have been kept in 6 and Gaiden. They were cool, but they were too gimmicky and should have been kept to those two games, and Yokoyama and his fucking genius decided to add them to Kiwami 3's ending. Mine is part of the Daidoji now! After the game was released, there were a lot of questions raised not just in the West, but also in Yakuza's native home turf of Japan, to which Yokoyama revealed that Kiwami 3 would be the last game to be a remake, and starting from there would create alternate timelines, rewriting Yakuza 4 and 5 to involve the Daidoji faction more. This isn't a concrete thing, so Yokoyama did say he's considering it, but maybe don't? The most important ingredient in the formula for making any Yakuza game are the sub-stories. I really tried to be brief here, but the more I wrote this, the worse it got. And dear God, all of the changes are really bad. I'll admit, Yakuza 3's 100 sub-stories might sound really impressive on paper, but in practice, the majority of them were not very memorable. Yakuza 3 sub-stories may not all be good, like yeah, the Transport 1 age, like the economy of Australia, but they did have some really fucking good ones. Silver Screen Dragon and the Cafe Alps Murder Mystery are especially really good at what they are. One of them is Kiryu having to act in front of cameras and having to beat each acting scenario by defeating enemies in a particular order or in specific ways, and then using the correct dialogue choices. And also it has a really funny ending where the film crew lose their shit when they find out Kiryu isn't some random like buff ass civilian dude, he's Yakuza. Oh no! The Cafe Alps one was okay. I didn't really exactly enjoy this one because you have to get it really early in Yakuza 3, but progressing the sub-story required you to be near the end of the game. But aside from that, you could definitely tell the Cafe Alps Murder Mystery sub-story was where the DNA, so to say, of the Judgment spin-offs came to be, and it's really cool to see. That's not even mentioning Ayaka's entire storyline. It wasn't in the original Yakuza 3 Western localization because this sub-story was part of a massage parlor minigame that got gutted, but it did return in a remastered release, and despite the whole transphobic sub-story debacle with Michiru, Ayaka's one is really good. Ayaka being revealed to be a trans woman was handled with such a great amount of care and positivity, especially given that Yakuza 3 was originally released in 2009 and also had the stereotype sub-story that I keep bringing up. This was handled with so much grace. I simply cannot praise it enough. Just go watch it for yourself, or if you can, play the game, which you kind of can't because the game got delisted on Steam. So what did they do in Kiwami 3? With the way they talk about removing sub-stories, you'd expect them to just be cutting out the bad ones. The 7 Mysteries of Ryukyu was cool and all, but they were kind of shit and always ended up in a generic fight. Again, not all of them were memorable, so it's understandable that some of them wouldn't make the cut. Although I really like the one where Kiryu tried to learn English. But then you remember Kiwami 3 removed over 70 sub-stories, and some of them were also changed or outright replaced, and it's really bad. They took Ayaka out back and shot her. They took the Silver Screen Dragon out back and shot it. And they also took the murder at Cafe Alps out back and shot it too. Yeah, it's all gone. And what do you get instead? Who the fuck is Ako-san? So Ako-san is based on a celebrity. She's kind of just playing herself, but she is so fucking annoying. I went off script there. I wasn't meant to say that, but she's glazed so hard in her sub-stories. All it did was annoy me. She gets her own Bakame Tyrant dish. You literally get into a street fight with her, and at the end of it, you get a gold statue stylized after her, and you can recruit her in the really shitty side game that I'll mention in a bit. And also, keep in mind, you cannot remove this gold statue. It's forever stuck in your fucking orphanage, and I don't want it. Get rid of it, please. Get it out of my goddamn orphanage. Dude, I've never seen any celebrity in a Yakuza game glazed as hard as Ako-san. Every celebrity cameo or recast or character has always been very memorable. Fucking Samoa Joe as Raymond Law in Pirate Yakuza is handled way better, and I just don't give a damn about how nice Ako-san is. I cared more about Yumi, Kiryu's original love interest, who got no characterization and didn't even get an appearance in Yakuza 0, and I cared even more about all of the random side characters in Lost Judgment School's side story more than whoever the fuck this is. Get the hell out of my game. I really don't want to be rude because she seems to be famous for a really good reason. Like, yeah, her singing is really good, but I just don't like how she's handled. Oh, and Kiryu says this in one of her sub-stories. Oh no. Great job, RGG. Just fucking great job. Some of the sub-stories got replaced and they're not good. There's an entire chain of sub-stories where you deal with a bunch of scammers who bump into people and exaggerate their injuries so they could extort money from victims to pay for their medical bills. But it's an entire storyline about how some people's skulls are so thick that you have to literally save their sorry asses for them to learn their lessons, or else they have to deal with people more threatening than they are. It got replaced with a pretty generic sub-story about how one of those scammers only did it to help his grandmother out financially. It's boring, and all of the comedy aspects were ripped out for a pretty hollow story that tries to pull your heartstrings, but all it does is pull money out of your pocket. Because this game is $100 in Australia. I really don't want to call it a generic sob story. This could have been a really good replacement, but it just isn't. It's the same old pity point bullshit that was pulled off way better in previous games. There's also another Yakuza 3 sub-story that got replaced. You see a fat office dude about to jump into the river and fucking kill himself, and even though it's kind of funny because he does this 3 times, it's an important lesson in loans, responsible money management, and also telling you to watch out for scams. They turned it into a sub-story about a beauty product scam and self-confidence, which would have been fine if they didn't reduce it into a single fucking sub-story that meant nothing. That's not even mentioning the sub-stories that are literally crucial to the story of Yakuza. Sure, there's still optional side quests, but there's a reason why they exist. These sub-stories that are tied to the story in some way expand on the world, clarify some missing details, and tie up loose ends. Infinite World was designed to do exactly that, at least when you're playing as Kiryu, where you do a bunch of bucket list memories that lets him reminisce in past memories, or letting him fulfill his wishes more meaningfully, like the one I mentioned with Komaki. There's a sub-story in the original Yakuza 3 where you tie up loose ends with a random nobody that you meet in the first game, Hirata, a loan shark of peace finance that Kiryu beats up in the first game because he was late on payments. He also gets expanded upon in Yakuza 0 Director's Cut, but I don't like talking about it. His life spiraled after that, so he fled his debts, leaving his wife and son to shoulder the blame. And it's revealed that Hirata actually tried to assassinate Kiryu at one point, but he bailed out. His son found out where his dad was after seeing a tabloid and tried to kill him on the spot, but Kiryu stops the attempted murder and the son is convinced to forgive Hirata. and it's also gone in Kiwami 3. God fucking damn it! I bring that up because there's a couple sub-stories that were important for the characterization for some of the people you get to meet and know throughout the series. Makoto Date, a detective who's been Kiryu's friend since the first Yakuza game, has an entire sub-story in the original game where he has to save the new Serena Mama from a hostage situation, with the huge plot point being that the guy who took her hostage was responsible for killing Date's old police partner many years ago, and it so happened to be the new Serena Mama's husband. Also, she doesn't have a name, so sorry if you're getting confused. They even made a pre-rendered cutscene for the sub-story, which isn't a thing they do anymore, but it was retaining Kiwami 3, and they cut it down and removed the emotional storytelling that was quite literally crucial to the sub-story about how she literally told Date to get out because she got trauma. I wrote in the script at least they kept the cutscene, but this is still making me mad. They also removed Wakazo from this. Oh fuck, I forgot about Wakazo. Yeah, Wakazo was just some random journalist, but he did play a big part in the Cafe House murder mystery sub-story. He also appears in Kiwami 3, but he's so far removed from the game compared to the original that you think he got snapped out of existence by Yokoyama. He just does that now. Just fucking remove it by the fucking click of his fingertips. What is this shit, Thanos? Admittedly, I kind of half-assed a lot of the sub-stories in the original Yakuza 3, so while I don't remember this, there were actually major sub-stories about the Ryodo family and the Morning Glory Orphanage kids. It's nice that Rikia's sub-stories that were originally an optional but entirely missable storyline were reincorporated into Kiwami 3 as a story event, so you can't just really miss it out of nowhere. But they did remove the storyline about Rikia accidentally running into a girl he used to know when he was a kid, which got cut out alongside a dance club you were able to go into to get that sub-story. I can't say the same for Mikio, the fat blonde Ryodo guy that I mentioned earlier. He's kind of just a big dork who has an entire sub-story about his dad that got removed. It's really sad it got removed. I didn't even know this existed. Mikio's dad wants him to stop being a Yakuza and go back into the family business, and the entire thing is about growing up to take responsibilities and a commentary on parental overreach and overprotectiveness. There are so many problems with the sub-stories. I'm definitely missing a lot of details, like how the fortune teller got changed from one about a scam to just a generic predicting Kira's future. Ooh, it's accurate predictions like they already did in Yakuza 0.
You have ass cancer.
Ass cancer?
It's when you have cancer in your ass.
The novelty of it kind of wears off after the first time, you know? Either way, I can't cover all of them. And also, they kept the chasing minigame for a few sub-stories and other content despite Mac being removed. It's also the really bad one they poured straight out of Yakuza 7's first chapter, which was also ironically reused from Judgment. Okay, RGG, fuck off. I kind of don't know how to segue this bit, so I'll just talk about it. They added an entirely new side story in the same vein as the generic 4 evil guys storyline they've been doing since Yakuza 5, such as the construction guys in Kiwami 2 and the 4 real estate kings or cabaret club managers in Yakuza 0. But compared to the last time they did this type of shit in Pirate Yakuza, which were the devil flags, it's bad. The new side content is bad. I hated the bad boy dragon thing. I don't want to talk about it like I do with the story, but while the story is something that can be gleamed over in another video and go over the new editions of Retcons made by Kiwami 3, Bad Boy Dragon cannot be fucking avoided.
It fucking fucks, it fucking sucks, it fucking blows, it's a piece of shit, and I don't like it.
The main problem is that in past Yakuza games, at least since 5 as far as I can remember, there's always been an introduction to a side story that involves a major minigame of sorts. They make you do the mandatory tutorial, but then after that, they leave you to it and it's never in the middle of an important story moment, so it exemplifies how much of a side distraction that this is that you can always just return to at another time if you're even going to bother doing it, or if you're like emotionally invested as much as the main character, especially with Kiryu or Majima doing the hostess minigame and Yagami helping uncover a major high school conspiracy by helping up the school clubs.
I was going to edit the rest of this section, but I'm genuinely at a loss for words at how terrible Bad Boy Dragon is. I don't remember what goes on in the story. I don't remember what goes on in most of it. I do have gameplay of it, and I only remember it being really bad. The main problem of Bad Boy Dragon is that it's constantly forced. You are interrupted at least 4 times, I believe, 4 times in the story, just to keep continuing this minigame. For almost every Yakuza game in the past, they don't force it this much. You only have to do it a couple times in the main story, and then you can go. That being 1 time, and then you're free to come back to it whenever you want to. But if for Kiwami 3, you have to constantly go back to it. The game forces you to go back to it 4 times, and it's so annoying, it's so forced, and also I hate it. I don't want to edit this section because this part is so terrible. And also when you beat Kiwami 3 in Dark Ties, you can put Kanda and fucking Kagwa in the game. Who would do this?
Watch out, Tsubasa! There's 2 rapists next to you!
Remember that motherfucker Miya that I mentioned earlier? The trainer who replaced Komaki, Yonashiro, and Minamida? His daughter fucking leads this gang. How the fuck do they keep finding ways to insert this man? The gameplay isn't good either. You have up to 4 bike leaders leading their own squad, and you have to raid the enemy biker turf and territory for some reason, and wow, cool. You also get the super impractical motorcycle heat action that I barely used. You also have the 2 more biker fights, that being Annihilation and this other thing I don't know what it's called. It's just tougher and more organized street fights rather than random encounters. Annihilation is wiping out the opposing gang's leadership and team, some of which have really annoying cutscenes showing the boss has spawned or requirements to boost your team's morale. Yeah, there's a morale mechanic. It only boosts your team's defense and attack or whatever. You can also unlock Miya as one of the bikers, and as expected, this motherfucker could not clear an area without begging for my help. Fuck you. The Orphanage section is disappointing. It's a mashup of the features made in Infinite Wells Dondoko Island minigame, which was at its core Yakuza Animal Crossing, I guess, plus the animal farm mechanic in Pirate Yakuza. At least I think it was from Pirate Yakuza. It was fun in those 2 games, but it's significantly less fun here. There's also farming, can't forget that. Why would Kiryu buy a chimpanzee as a pet? Have we not learned from history at all? That ape is going to get fucking mad one day and skin these kids alive. The thing is, RGG is pretty infamous for reusing pretty much every asset in existence. If they were a recycling plant, they would be the greenest company in existence. You could replace wind turbines, solar panels, and nuclear energy with the amount of green energy RGG produces from recycling assets. Jesus Christ. In their defense, asset reuse is seen as a pretty endearing thing among the community because RGG is famous for reusing assets in such an efficient and smart way. But again, like everything else in Kiwami 3, it's shitty.
Know your fucking place, trash.
Also, they added a new thing where the Morning Glory is part of some neighborhood market. Oh, what? Is a Ryukyu public market not enough for you? A 10-minute walk to downtown too much for you? Gotta rely on child labor like 1800s Britain? You disgust me. Fuck you.
Slave labor.
The neighborhood market is where you complete tasks, most of which is selling the stuff you make from the minigames like shoeing, farming, fishing, cooking, catching bugs. What? It's nothing that major, but the existence of this neighborhood board is the only thing that reminded me that Yakuza Kiwami 3 has a gacha system. It's not like how it is on Roblox, don't worry. They don't charge you real money for it. You just gotta spend millions of in-game yen to get raffle tickets and recruit fucking Yuki for bad boy. Oh my god! It's worth mentioning that Yakuza 3's original fishing minigame was infamous for being harder than literally anything else in the game, if not the whole series. Like, this is apparently worse than the combat itself. There's an achievement for catching tuna, and it's apparently so hard that it discouraged me from even playing that minigame.
Get the fuck out of here! That is what I'm fucking talking about!
This is bad news to me though. They removed it in Kiwami 3 and replaced it with something so fucking easy a toddler could play it. God damn it, RGG! The way they introduced the minigame though is so baffling. They make Kiryu look like he can't run an orphanage, even though he's been doing this since the end of Yakuza 2. They literally show him competently running the orphanage in the opening cutscenes of the 2nd chapter. There's no way he wouldn't know and let Haruka do the heavy lifting like they did in Kiwami fucking 3. I really tried to sit through the children's stories, but at some point, as I continued to get sick of Kiwami 3, I got tired of it and started skipping it, and ultimately, I gave up.
All you need to know is that they changed the children's story from being main story events into optional orphanage side content. It's really disappointing. All of the stories got changed. I literally do not remember all the changes. Remember the Ryona racism one from Yakuza 3? That's famous for a reason. Yeah, Ryona's just racist. But it's an important message about racism or self-image and how that shouldn't affect you, because you're still you. Your physical characteristics or injuries does not define who you are. They changed it in Kiwami 3, and now the story is meaningless, and Ayako, the girl who fucking runs all over the goddamn place, her story got changed too. She was stressed out. Like, all of the kids were putting responsibilities on her, and so she tried to run away from the Morning Glory orphanage. That's the storyline in Yakuza 3. You have to chase her down, and she's super fast, but in Kiwami 3, it's changed that so, oh, Ayako wished that she was a marathon runner. I don't know, it kind of takes away from the story. I'm very disappointed. All in all, the Morning Glory Orphanage edition is really disappointing. I thought they were going to add a lot compared to the rest of the game, and also Mame the dog, he wasn't actually the orphanage dog from the very beginning. beginning. He came in later. You have to do it during a main story quest. But instead, they made him the default dog that appears from the very beginning, which is very jarring because there is an entire main story sequence about how Mami came to be the orphanage's dog. So what's the point?
People were really excited when they found out the Reaper bounty missions were coming back to Kiwami 3, and I was also excited, but I did think they were kind of repetitive and tedious, but it did expand a lot on the story, mostly world building. This was supposed to be a small rant in the part where I ran about Kiwami 3's combat, but it ended up being so big that it had to be dedicated to its own chapter. The entire storyline about the Reapers is about Kashiwagi had been running this organization called the Honest Living Association, or the HLA, to help former Yakuza reform, and they've been trying to get this new hitman organization called the Reapers to hand themselves in so they could move on to civilian life. Keep in mind, by the time you run into the HLA in the original game, Kashiwagi was killed by a minigun strafing run, at least before they confirmed that he fucking lived in Yakuza 7, and Kiryu's work for the HLA was him wanting to carry on Kashiwagi's legacy of helping ex-Yakuza reform. In Kiwami 3, they took the HLA out back and fucking shot it again, y'all. But I'm fucking sick of this. They're gone now. Everything good about Yakuza 3 got taken out back and euthanized. What the hell is this game? If you want to look at this at a much more deeper level, it was a fucking allegory of how difficult it is in real life for ex-Yakuza to enter civilian life. The Japanese government has, over the years, gotten very tough on organized crime, and there's even laws that specifically make it hard for ex-Yakuza members to even live. That's what the HLA represents, and it's gone. I won't lie, even though the Reapers were really funny and cool side bosses, some of them even having unique stories and backgrounds, they were executed in a bit of a sloppy way for the original game, where if you want to claim a bounty, you could only do it one at a time instead of multiple, and you always have to talk with the representative of the HLA, that being Ibuki. It was super annoying since you had to keep going back and forth for every single target, yet it felt so necessary to do. It was satisfying. You're changing the world, at least the underworld of Japan, one step at a time by apprehending ex-Yakuza hitmen and convincing them to finally leave their criminal past behind. But with the HLA gone in Kiwami 3, what did they do instead? They reused the police bounty mechanic from Pirate Yakuza. Fucking classic RPG move. Okay, fucking awesome. Well fucking done. So in Pirate Yakuza, Majima gets a side activity where he can do it anytime. He has a giant list of bounties to claim across Hawaii. These aren't substantial, and in hindsight, it's kind of bland and really serves as bonus boss fights for monetary reward. They destroyed every little piece of dialogue and interaction of the HLA in Kiwami 3 and replaced it with Kashiwagi's shitty bounty system. Also, remember that the HLA was literally about reforming ex-criminals, those who had a huge grudge against the Yakuza clans. What is Kiwami 3's system about? Fucking bullshit. You're only stopping the Reapers because they're going around posing as Tojo Yakuza members and wreaking havoc, so instead of convincing hitmen to enter civilian life, you're going around stopping incompetent goofballs from ruining a Yakuza clan's reputation. What makes this even worse was that the Reapers had a bunch of really crucial characters in the original, that being Kotaro and Shinzaki. Kotaro was a guy who simply could not stomach the idea of killing someone and got cold feet every time he tried to kill someone, so fighting him in the original game was basically bullying a kindergartner. He literally only had a taser while the other Reapers had knives and guns. He ends up working for the HLA as a background guy, but he's always there as a fucking comic relief idiot. He's an idiot who ends up being a nice guy, which is the point. Then there's Shinzaki, arguably the most important Reaper. To make things short, he helps Kiryu point towards certain directions, mostly related to the Reaper missions, and he's pretending to be an unrelated guy named Hideki who does street performances. The thing is, Shinzaki is called the Scythe of the Grim Reaper, and yeah, he is difficult when he reveals himself, and you have to fight him 3 times because he's built like that. A fucking tank. The 3rd time is the final challenge because you also have to fight the true boss of the Reapers, that being Kazuto Arase, the former sergeant of the Nishikiyama family who got kicked out for failing to kill Kiryu. Wanting revenge for what happened, especially against Kiryu, and rejecting Kashiwagi's offers for reformation, he went low and formed the Reapers, all of whom are hitmen who swore revenge on the Yakuza, and a lot of them are really good at doing their jobs, which is why it's so crucial for Kiryu to stop the Reapers. When Arase and Shinzaki are taken down, Ibuki explains why the HLA exists and offers to take them in, but Arase refuses because he thinks he's too far gone and also blames Kiryu for everything that has happened to him, but he does at the very least appreciate the help offered by the HLA before leaving. It's a bit of a yap fest, but it's very important for me to bring that up because Yakuza Kiwami 3 did 2 surprising things. They kept Kotaro, and then took Shinzaki out back and shot him. Bravo, RG, you've done it again. You've ruined an interesting way to explore Yakuza as well. Fuck you! Shinzaki is gone, which further paints the Reapers as being a bunch of incompetent morons, but they did keep Arase. Remember how Arase's entire motivation was revenge and realized people wanted to help him, but rejected it anyways because he was too far gone? Maybe my explanation for the Reaper's existence is a little bad. I kind of slept through his dialogue in Yakuza 3 Remastered, but in Kiwami 3, it's nuked, it's chopped, it's cooked. Arase isn't actually the leader in this. He didn't create the organization, but he just found a bunch of morons and rallied them to target the Tojo clans. That's literally what it says. They rewrote this, so Kashiwagi isn't trying to genuinely help Arase anymore and instead trying to contain this failure of an assassin from doing any more damage to the Tojo clan. And also, Arase wants to kill Kiryu for foiling his plan, which is the only thing they kept. Since Ibuki isn't here anymore and neither is Shinzaki, when you defeat Arase, he and Kiryu has this back and forth about killing, and Kiryu says that while he hates Arase, he would never kill the guy because it won't bring back the friends, mostly Shinji and Reina, back from the dead. And then Arase falls unconscious because why not? He gets apprehended there on the spot instead of leaving peacefully like in the original. I thought we were past this shit. I don't think you get how fucking bad this is. They made an entire story in the original game about how important second chance and reformation is, to the point of including it in an entirely separate chain of optional events you can do, and they fucking removed it. For what reason? To romanticize the Yakuza? This entire series has been communicating the core message of why doing that is a bad idea. Ever since the first game, they've shown you the contrast between Kiryu and a few others' idea of romanticized honorable Yakuza who are essentially lovable vigilantes or rogues who protect the vulnerable people from threats at best and the necessary evil at worst, against the more greedy, ambitious, and power-hungry Yakuza who only cares about the bottom line and power and influence, especially given how self-destructive the Yakuza became towards the end of the 20th century, which happened in real life with the Yamaguchi Gumi War after they had an internal split. A gang war was waged over this shit. Infinite Wealth is an entire story written to portray the innocent victims of the Yakuza, and they threw it out in one remake. Yokoyama, what the fuck are you writing? The Reapers and the problem of reforming Yakuza was so important in the early Yakuza games for Infinite Wealth and Lost Judgment as well to some extent that, mind you, there is an entire sub-story about the organization in Yakuza 4 featuring Kotaro's struggles with getting a job after he was reformed by the HLA. That's how crucial the idea of second chances was, and it's gone. The Reapers in Kiwami 3 are a shadow of what they originally were in Yakuza 3. It diminishes the very core message of how you shouldn't glorify the Yakuza or any other criminal organizations for that fact because of the damage they've caused to Japanese society and pretty much every society anywhere else in the world, like the American or Italian mafia, and it's really disappointing. I got really mad writing all of this. I'm very sorry. Okay, we finally gotten past all of those parts. Let's talk about Mine's Garden game, Dark Ties. The mini garden the mini garden game, like a dragon garden. The mini garden game, Dark Ties, exists. It's a guiding game of all time. I really don't know what else is there to say. Mine's fighting style isn't really that fun. It's super stale. It doesn't have a lot of finishers, but Mine does have a couple unique moves like a command grab that deals decent damage and a charge grab move that can be changed into an aerial attack. Some of his heat actions were taken from Yagami, which again is kind of ironic because Lost Judgment has the best combat and RGG still refuses to reuse the game's combat mechanics. What the fuck? The game was advertised to be 15 hours long, if not longer, by RGG. They were really going in on the whole 2 games in one package deal. They kept going up and down on how this game was going to be the same length as Kiryu's Gaiden game and Pirate Yakuza, so people were finally excited to have an entire game dedicated to Yoshitaka Mine, the gayest businessman alive, and honestly, I thought it was exciting too. I admittedly didn't really like Mine that much after he wrecked Kiryu's orphanage, and I couldn't understand how people were so willing to forgive Mine for that, but then I remembered that this is the internet and Mine is a really attractive man. Kiwami 3 Mine is really hot. There is one problem. Dark Ties is 3 hours long. 3 3 hours long. You can beat this game in a single day, if not a single sitting session. It's literally the length of Kiwami 2's Majima Saga. That thing only had 2 chapters, while Dark Ties, well, it has 3 chapters, but that's only 1 extra chapter and it's still just as short. You're spending 1 hour per chapter, if not even less than that, if you somehow manage to rush through all of the content, which might also explain what some of the jank of Kiwami 3. Yeah, they just put it over Kiwami 2 rather than putting in more work. Oh yeah, by the way, I forgot to mention this, but Mine has the Dark Awakening. I don't care about Mine's fighting style. Dark Awakening is nothing special. Mine's fighting style is nothing special. I don't enjoy it.
Get him the fuck out of here.
That's the main crux of people's problems with Dark Ties. It's so goddamn short, and while the story is admittedly really good, it's pretty short, and the packaging is with a piece of turd RGG found in an alleyway priced at $100 in Australia. And like, extra $20 if you buy the deluxe edition.
With cheese, Mr. Squidward.
When they said it would be over 10 hours long, most expected that it would at least have a substantial story like Kiryu's Gaiden and Pirate Yakuza to a lesser extent. But the truth is, Dark Ties is really hard carried by its side activities, which was a huge criticism in Pirate Yakuza, but it's even worse here in Dark Ties because the amount of time you'll be spending on side activities is literally hours. That is something horrible for me to say, because Lost Judgment is easily 30 hours long, and if you do all the side activities as well, it would take almost 60. But given that Lost Judgment is a full entry and Dark Ties is meant to be a Gaiden-esque game, a more fair comparison would be Pirate Yakuza and Kiryu's Gaiden, both of which are smaller games and would actually take at most 30 hours. Again, Dark Ties takes 3 hours to beat! I mean, I guess this is a consequence of what Dark Ties was originally meant to be. A movie documenting Minnie's life before Yakuza 3 before it got turned into a Gaiden game. A fucking movie is what they were originally going for, and that would probably give you some idea of why this was so poorly handled. This might come as a surprise to anyone who's been disappointed by Kiwami 3 so far and also watching this video. I actually really like Dark Ties' story. It's really good. There's no way, because it wasn't written by Yokoyama. That's why it's so good. This story wasn't even meant to be a Gaiden game. The story of Dark Ties originated as a story in a spin-off game by RGG called RGG Online, or RGGO. It's exclusive to Japan and it's got all the DNA of your classic gacha game, so unsurprisingly, it's not that good. At least I think so. I've never seen gameplay of it. I fucking love the Biocats, so that makes me a hypocrite, and also the only thing I've seen about RGGO is the character cards. Anyways, this story was originally written by, I don't know how to pronounce his name. It's a Kazunobu Takeuchi. So it's been adapted into Dark Ties with some dialogue and scene changes. In an interview, Yokoyama was apparently so impressed by Takeuchi's work in Mine's story that this became the basis of Dark Ties, and Takeuchi's reaction was that he was surprised because he apparently doesn't get praise from Yokoyama often. Probably because Yokoyama can't take criticism. I don't know what goes on in the original stories, so Dark Ties is a much more canonical adaptation of this story because most of the events in RGGO aren't canon, like Ryuji Goda getting exiled and Ichiban meeting Kuze. What? Hey, it's Beta from the future here again. I'm coming back to do a retake because it's too long. This is a couple hundred words shorter. Here is the actual story of Dark Ties. It started with Mine quitting his IT company after a heated meeting. He's drunk and depressed, but then he witnesses Daigo Dojima's entourage get ambushed in a gunfight. Daigo is the sole survivor of this ambush, and Mine becomes fascinated. Why would low-life nobodies acting as bodyguards give their lives for someone like Daigo, a high-ranking criminal? Well, he has to find out. So he tracked down Kanda, a Nishikiyama family soldier, so he could get an in on a Yakuza life who recently got out of prison for sexual assault. Foreshadowing. Kanda gets out of prison and is a little pissed that his welcoming party is just 2 mooks and no one else, and then immediately goes straight to Kamurocho to try to kidnap a woman. Okay, RGG, you don't have to rub it in at this point. There's a fight between Mine and Kanda, but Mine quickly diffuses tensions by offering Kanda millions to join the Nishikiyama family, which Kanda immediately accepts. Because Kanda is Kanda, honor doesn't matter when you can blow money on prostitutes, so Kanda introduces Mine to the patriarch of the Nishikiyama family, or at least the acting patriarch, Shunpei Ikari. Sorry, I meant that's an Evangelion character. Immediately at the start of his tenure as Nishikiyama family associate, Mine is already making gigantic financial contributions, which helps Mine's goal of catching Daigo's attention. At this point, it's worth mentioning that Mine's only interested in why Daigo has such loyal followers and doesn't dramatize Mine's love for him that comes later into the story. I think it's cool that they made Mine's sexuality a lot more obvious here. Some people might disagree on me with that because I was stupid enough to interpret it, at least when I played Yakuza 3, 3 years ago as a platonic, loyalty-based love instead of him being obviously gay. Yes, I was like that 5 years ago. I'm really sorry.
I quickly became homophobic.
Given that Kanda and Mine are working together to slowly gain influence over the Nishikiyama family, Ikari, yeah, remember him, the acting patriarch of the Nishikiyama family, he wants to be the real patriarch of the clan, but you know that would never come to be. He's pissed that Kanda is making a name for himself with Mine's help and is thinking of rubbing one out. Rubbing Kanda out or bumping him off. I think Mine did something to me again. They also introduced a new member of the Nishikiyama family, Zenba, who I think doesn't even appear in Kiwami 3 and is exclusive to Dark Ties. He's the IT guy of the family, and I think he's the only reason why he's even there is to introduce the Kanda damage control mechanic, and then he never appears in Kiwami 3. Komaki syndrome. So the Nishikiyama family is doing numbers and raking in cash. This does finally grab the attention of Daigo, much to Mine's surprise, but it's more so that Daigo is not too happy that Mine's actions is the equivalent of stomping over other fellow Tojo clan Yakuza members' territory and taking it for themselves in the case of the Furukane family, and how these actions are unnecessary, at least to Daigo. And sure, it doesn't help much with the Tojo clan's finances if you're just being peaceful with every single Yakuza family, especially after Yakuza 2, where the Tojo and the Omi alliance, who are based in Osaka, literally had a gang war. Mine does try to figure out why Daigo joined the Yakuza life, but all he got was something he disagreed on, because he still remembered that night Daigo's life was saved by a bunch of no-name, low-ranking members. Family and camaraderie is what Daigo talks about. I do get Daigo's sentiment. It did lead to problems, especially given that Mine survived an assassination attempt, and Kanda later almost got assassinated too. Speaking of those assassination attempts, they were obviously sent by Ikari, at least for Kanda, so Mine does a little bit of tomfoolery and baits Ikari into a deal meant to earn more money than Kanda that would theoretically cement Ikari's patriarchy. It was a fucking trap. I mean, come on, it's really obvious, especially if you know what happens in Yakuza 3. The deal goes down and Ikari gets jumped by the police. Mine formulates the plan, but Kanda helped gather the police and resources to pull the stunt off. Boss fight time! Kanda does this really cool team-up shit on Ikari that really solidifies the bond between him and Mine. I hope this doesn't lead to a suspiciously large suitcase being used to house a particular object down the line. The police catch up to Ikari and arrest him, but then Ikari breaks free, grabs a gun off the detective who helped Mine, and then shoots the same detective. Ikari is super fucked. Oh god. While he did manage to lose the cops, it basically took him out of the picture and won't be causing Mine and Kanda any more problems. Foreshadowing. There's a full scene right after Ikari's been dealt with between Kanda and Mine. It goes through how the arms deal was technically legitimate, like they gathered all of the guns but gave it all to the police and sacrificed the potential funds they could have gotten. But they chose to sacrifice it to not only get rid of Ikari, but to ensure that if they get into any legal trouble, the police can be called in to cover for them. It's a genius plan all around. Two birds with one stone. Then there's the real heart tugger, Kanda and Mine's conversation. This is the moment where I genuinely thought Kanda could change and forgot that he was a vile, hedonistic asshole, and to the point where I even forgot Dark Ties was a prequel. Kanda admits that he thought the plan was going to fail, but ended up sticking with Mine through to the end. There were already shades of Kanda caring only about the money and less about Mine, but here, it's a genuine heart-to-heart. He's grateful that Mine stuck with him instead of Ikari, proclaiming that they're both brothers for life. This isn't exactly the first time Kanda has done something to help Mine, mind you. You can tell that Kanda is excited, ambitious, and Mine, while still critical of Kanda because Kanda is Kanda, it does reflect that being partners with Kanda gave him a true calling, as if he finally belonged somewhere after a whole life of being a social outcast. This scene is so good at making you forget that Kanda is a terrible person. This might sound strange given everything I talked about before Dark Ties, but Kanda's character development was so good in here because they trick you into thinking he'll change. It shines on the relationship that Mine and Kanda shared, at least before Mine gave Kiryu the best Christmas gift one could ask for. In Yakuza 3, Kanda is always shown to be this ungrateful asshole who constantly begs for money from Mine, and the latter doesn't do much aside from secretly plan his own ambitions and resent Kanda. In Dark Ties, Mine and Kanda were two tight bros who might have been tighter in bed. Like Kanda, for as much as he keeps taking the credit from Mine's work to boost the Nishikiyama's family's reputation, he's clearly appreciative of what Mine has done for him, and at one point he rams his car into a bunch of would-be assassins. This is pretty upsetting once you remember that the event of Yakuza 3 unfolded not soon after. In case you think they're trying to make him look better, which some people think that is the case, don't worry, the game and Takeuchi by extension will quickly remind you why this is not the case. This type of writing is so good, so rich with drama and subtlety, and it's easy to say that because it's not written by fucking Yokoyama. So the final chapter starts with Kanda slapping the shit out of his subordinates, which was a really funny thing that they did in the original Yakuza 3, so it was kind of a treat to see him try to do the same with Mine, only for Mine to not get hit because he dodged that shit. Unfortunately, this is also the point where things change for the worse and ultimately reminds you that this is a prequel to Yakuza 3. The Nishiyama family is now dominating much of Kamurocho thanks to the combined ambitions of Kanda and Mine and absolutely swimming in cash, but Mine does mention how Daigo's obviously pissed about it. In case you didn't get it, Mine's initial meeting with Daigo actually soured his opinion on the chairman, so the game makes it clear that Mine did not fall for Daigo instantly. Mine's second meeting with Daigo goes as well as the first one. Daigo's still pissed, and this time he's threatening Mine with the possibility of retaliation since he keeps on doing this shit, rolling over fellow Tojo subsidiaries just so the Nishiyama family could take it all for themselves. It creates infighting. Daigo doesn't like that, but the thing is, Daigo, even though he's the leader of one of Japan's largest criminal organizations, at least in the Yakuza universe, he still cares about his members. Daigo mourns for the people regardless of how low they were in the Tojo clan's ranks, and Mine isn't exactly a fan of that approach. This is all hearsay and empty words to Mine. Also, he tends to do this really weird shit where he thinks anyone doing charitable acts or having basic human compassion and empathy are faking it. Especially if you do the side content, Mine is just a complete asshole. Moving up to the finale, the Nishiyama family's tribute has gone up to 700 million. Kanda and Mine prepare the tribute payment, but on their way to the Tojo HQ, they get ambushed and the chauffeur fucking dies. Oh boy, Ikari's back and he wants revenge, so he gathered all of the people the Nishiyama family wronged and they failed miserably at stopping Mine and Kanda. Yeah, no shit. There's this really cool sequence where Kanda lifts an entire construction beam to get Mine onto a platform where Ikari's gunners are trying to snipe the two of them. And then when Mine gets back down, Kanda throws a guy midair like a Saejima and Mine lands this cool ass follow-up. They think they're fucking infinite wealth. This cutscene is what Yakuza is at its core, and it's so good. And it's only for Dark Ties. I'm sorry, I have to remind you that this is a shit game. They manage to fight off the ambushers, but then Ikari gets a jump on Kanda and Mine tanks the hit instead. This is where the relationship between Mine and Kanda falls apart, if not in an instant. This is the true tragedy of Dark Ties right here. Mine tries to convince Kanda to give the money to Ikari to spare the two of them, since they can easily earn it back. Kanda though, he repeats the same brotherly oath he's been repeating to Mine this entire story, and then declares that Mine is no longer of any use to him, and then runs away like a coward. He leaves Mine to die. The man he became sworn brothers with worked his ass off to repair his relationship, helped rebuild the Nishiyama family, fucking dethroned Ikari for the patriarch seat. It's gone. This is why I really like this story. I've already said it, but this is the real tragedy of Dark Ties. It's so beautiful and it's so tragic. This betrayal is the very moment that would ultimately lead to Kanda's final moments in Yakuza 3. The man that Mine tried to change for so long proved that he simply cannot change. His greed and ambition gone away, and years after Dark Ties, Kanda would pay for it in the form of a beheaded peace offering to Kiryu. I know this is all about Mine's backstory, so the focus will be on him, but this utter annihilation of Kanda, it's so good. They trick you into thinking Kanda can change for the better, then it hits you with the reminder that this is Yakuza 3 and not a happy ending. Thankfully, Daigo intervenes and tries to bribe Ikari a billion yen to spare Mine, but you know, Ikari is a hateful bitch, so he tries to shoot Mine, but the bullet hits Daigo instead because Daigo is a goddamn bullet magnet.
Also, Ikari talks about how much he misses his wife.
I miss my wife, Tails. I miss her a lot. I'll be back.
This move shakes me to his core. A high-ranking Yakuza protecting what was essentially a random nobody from a small Yakuza subsidiary. Despite all the treachery, infighting, financial issues, and gang wars, Daigo still holds onto his ideals that he values every member of the Tojo clan. It's like the night Mine saw Daigo being saved by a bunch of nobodies, and that's when it finally hits Mine on Daigo's earlier words. Also, Ikari gets the shit beaten out of him, and he never gets brought up again, so he probably got arrested for one last time, and he's basically out of the story forever.
He's also the final boss, and he's really fucking bad. I did not have fun fighting against him because he was so goddamn easy.
And Mine describes Daigo Dojima as an overwhelming remiss. Oh, he's gay now! Needless to say, Mine hates Kanda. That brotherly bond is dead in the water. From there, Mine starts the Hakuho clan and meets with Daigo again to discuss things. This is where the homoeroticism truly reaches its peak, and I'm all here for it. I love this shit. Their oath ceremony is in the Bantam bar in Kamurocho, Kamurocho, the same bar where Kiryu used the guy as a battering ram in Kiwami 2, but let's ignore that. Mine also gets his tattoo done, ironically from Mutabori, the same artist that made Kiryu and Nishiki's tattoo, as well as finishing off Rikia's incomplete Okinawan Viper tattoo. It was at this moment that everything he does will be for his undying loyalty and dedication to Daigo. Yeah, it's pretty fucking obvious that he's gay.
Oh my god.
At the end of Dark Ties and after Kanda has already died, Mine's talking on the phone with Richardson about killing a comatose Daigo at the hospital to consolidate the Okinawa land deal, but he makes a stop at Bantam one last time to talk about Daigo with the bar owner. This scene, while I find hard to summarize, solidifies the bond that Daigo and Mine has after the night that sacrifice was made. Daigo has been holding onto an expensive bottle of whiskey, and how Daigo really appreciates every single person in the Tojo clan, with Mine being a prominent mention. At the end, it cuts to a shot of Daigo's Mine's fateful fight with Kiryu's between two men who cared for Daigo and Mine falling off the hospital's 60th floor rooftop. Daigo visits Bantam again and the topic of the expensive whiskey is brought up. Mine made sure that the bar keeps running since that's where he and Daigo first and last shared a drink, and it's an emotional scene that shows how much Daigo cared about Mine. Oh shit, oh god, Yokoyama's barging into the story to show that one last time! Just watch my reaction to the ending. I don't even know.
Here comes the stupid fucking scene! God fucking damn it!
死ねなかった。
Fuck off!
やはり死んだんだ。峰義高は死んだ。ここにいるのは一人の名を消した男。それだけだ。
Fuck off! Yokoyama, kill yourself! Fuck! God damn it.
Mine survived falling 60 floors. 60 fucking floors he fell and survived, and the thing that broke his fall and saved him isn't some flashy, dramatic, or goofy Yakuza-esque bullshit that this series is famous for. It's none of that. No. It was a bush. A goddamn bush saved Mine from certain death, and he was recruited by the Daidoji faction. I'm writing this at 3 in the morning, and I'm at a total loss of words. I can't express shock because I already did. I can't express disgust because I already did that too. But the one thing I can still express one last time is this. Disappointment. I am simply another man who will raise his name, nothing more. Every high-stake death in the Yakuza story can be grounded into a meaningless piece of shit retcon about how a guy faked his death by landing on a bush. What a travesty. I don't want to end the Dark Ties session with this side content shaped hole when this whole video already has a lot of holes, so I'll briefly cover Kanda Damage Control and the underground fighting ring. Because I don't want to go through this whatsoever. Kanda Damage Control is where you get all of the character development between Kanda and Mine plus Zemba. He's just there. Where the fuck is Hasebi? It shows how things could have been different had the characters not taken certain actions. Every once in a while when you rank Kanda up, you have an opportunity to start a bro time with Kanda. Don't worry, it's not like how it is in Ishin. All it does is show you the bonding between Kanda and Mine, and it's really sad. It definitely provides an insight into Kanda because, well, he is a vile human being. We already know what he does, or at least what he's going to do in Yakuza 3. But Kanda has Mine to go around Kamurocho and Kanda Damage Control to solve investigations and doing good deeds, and it's stylized after Guidance, the Kame Network, which I mentioned earlier. Basically, Mine is trying to convince Kanda to change in these bro times, while also answering some of the Kanda's uncomfortable questions. Are you an ass or tits guy? What type of woman are you into? It's those sort of questions which you can answer closer to the best of Mine's abilities because Mine is not interested in women. He wants the Daigo pussy. Mine does fire back with some good responses if you choose to do so, and like it's some really funny stuff like, hey Kanda, why don't you do a good deed yourself, you lazy bum? Kind of emphasizes how much of a lazy asshole Kanda is for outsourcing reputation to Mine, and it's reflected in the optional investigations, which are glorified sub-stories, where Mine never refers to himself and tells people that his name is Kanda. The sub-stories also reflects Mine's character, like how he doesn't trust homeless charity organizations, even though that particular sub-story does reveal the guy running it is a truly sincere person and genuinely wants to help those who are impoverished. I didn't finish all of the fucking sub-stories because I hated playing this game, but I did play the sub-story where Mine has to find out who stole Kanda's pants, even though I didn't record it. It's classic. It's just a comedic sub-story. It's based on the same one from Kiwami 2 where Kiryu lays a panties trap. God knows why. It's a little in poor taste because of what was done in Kiwami 3 and Kagawa, but the sub-story ends with Kanda ripping his clothes off. Oh, for fuck's sake. It ends with Kanda whipping his whole cock out in front of Mine and Zenba, added to the list of Kanda's sins.
Okay, so I was wrong here. I was in shock when the scene happened, but I'm watching over someone's footage and turns out, no, he's just wearing invisible fucking panties or I don't know what they're called. Oh my. Still, why would you put this in?
I know in the grand scheme of things, this isn't as bad as a problem as Kagawa or Kanda strangling a woman to death in Kiwami 3, but holy shit, this is not the game you want to put this in, RGG! It does finally end with Kanda doing his first ever good deed, and it's to save a random girl that he's been obsessed with at the soap plant that he likes to frequent at. He gets upset that the girl he rescued only gives attention to Mine, but to be fair, Mine is hot and did get involved in the fighting, so I'd do the same thing. At least I'm a guy. I have a chance. Come on, just give me a chance. I'm a guy right over here. Come on. What makes it so sad is how Kanda finally admits to Mine about how being appreciated for his good deed with a reward, even if it's just a shitty drink and a worthless discount to the soap land, does make him feel good. He also thanks Mine in a genuine, sincere way for helping him raise his reputation and doing all of the work for him. This is why I keep talking about why the tragedy of Dark Ties is all about Mine and Kanda and not Mine and Daigo. It's a shame that the underground fighting ring is so bad. I don't even want to go into it. I did not bother finishing this shit. Can you tell I forgot to write this bit in? Yakuza 3 soundtrack might not be as good as any of the future titles, but it's far more memorable than most of the soundtrack from Pirate Yakuza, and god damn it, I fucking defend Pirate Yakuza with my life. I might not like some of Yakuza 3's music, like the regular boss theme More Huge didn't really fit the tone of actually fighting a boss, and I'm really sorry to say this, Crush and Strike is kinda meh. That being said, I really like D2A because it's such a funny song. You can't take this seriously, which I think was the intention since for sub-story battles. There's some fan favorites that are also my favorites, like Ill Treatment and Clay Doll on a Cradle. I love Ill Treatment, and Clay Doll on a Cradle is so iconic, it being the final long battle theme for the hospital sequence. God, that piano is so good. As per Kiwami tradition, RGG likes to remix or replace certain songs. For the most part, they've done some pretty good replacement and remixes, but for other tracks, it's very hit or miss. Most of the Yakuza soundtracks since the beginning of the series were mostly composed by Hidenari Shoji, with Yakuza 3 being one of them. It's sometimes composed or arranged by different collaborators like 83 Key, who gave us the Lost Judgment long battle theme called Fog. Holy shit, it's so good, no questions asked, eat my ass.
Okay, that's enough distraction.
Tak, you're back.
Anyways, Hidenori Shoji didn't compose Kiwami 3's soundtrack. Actually, he wasn't even involved in Kiwami 3's soundtrack in any capacity, aside from composing the original songs that stayed in the game. So it was arranged by some other people. RGG and Sega has a track record of making absolute bangers even if their signature director isn't there, that being Shoji in this case. Pirate Yakuza Stu's had some really good bangers like Raymond Law's final theme and Saijima's remix. These are awesome. So with that game being from last year. Could I say the same for Kiwami 3? Will RGG continue the trend of making almost flawless soundtracks? No. They replaced most of the tracks. The battle themes are gone, ill treatment is gone, fucking Clay Dawn the Credo is replaced with absolute bullshit. I don't like a lot of these themes, not really good, but I mean, the song that replaced Clay Dawn the Credo, Ikazama, it's not that bad if you change where it's used and how it's used. It replaces the hospital battle theme, but if they inserted it into Tamashiro's final fight at a bullfighting arena, I would have liked this more. Also, the instrumental version sounds like the backing track to Thanos twerking, so I'm trying to fight through the 60th floor hospital while Thanos throwing it back is eternally playing in my mind. I'm sorry if I put that image in your head. But look, for how messily they reuse the songs and made some of these boss remixes, as long as they make Lauka Long and Mini's theme sound good, I can forgive them. Yeah, I really like Lauka Long's new remix. I can say the same with Joji Kazuma's remix, even though that one is a bit more debatable.
Mexicans!
Mini's Fly remix, which is iconic because it's the fucking theme that represents Yakuza 3 as a whole and Mini's character. The Kiwami 3 version is kinda mid. They added a new violin, which I love, but they go in way too hard with the electric guitar. It dominates most of the song. It feels like it's the only instrument they care about. It kinda ruined it. Richardson's FM Soundstorm remix is so bad though. Holy shit. It sounds like someone's fucking farting in my ear. Oh yeah, I can't forget Akiko's fucking Baka Mitai mix. I don't care. I'm not even gonna bother playing it. I don't want to talk about this game anymore. I ended up installing a mod that restores the old music and the game feels so much better with the old music.
Oh my god, the song is so much fucking better than that bullshit.
This is the last bit I wrote into my script and I kind of have to stop it here. I don't know how to segue to the next part, which is a deeply serious topic. Given that I mentioned and joke about it several times, I'm just going to warn you the next part is about Kagawa and it won't be as funny or as good for that matter. Talking about Kiwami 3 without mentioning Teruyuki Kagawa even once is impossible. Even in reviews, they don't go into controversy that deeply. They still bring up RemoveKagawa movement and all of the bad things Kagawa did. There's a big video done by 04 Tenno on Kagawa and RGG's poor handling of the situation, which includes Sega and RGG censoring and outright ignoring the controversy. I don't necessarily agree with everything 04 Tenno has done because there was at least one post that was widely misinterpreted by them and I kind of fell for it, but even with the misinterpretation cleared up, it was still bad. It doesn't change anything. This isn't the best video for RemoveKagawa, but I'll try my best to summarize. In 2019, Kagawa sexually assaulted 2 hostesses in a high-end club in Ginza. The scandal only broke out when the Daily Shincho found out about a lawsuit between the hostess and the club for not protecting her properly from Kagawa, which was settled, but it revealed to Japan who Kagawa was. What Kagawa and his talent agency, Lotus Roots, did next was try to downplay and bury the incident, but Kagawa is or was known for being very rowdy because of his alcoholism, which barred him from entering multiple clubs, but not this one. In August 25, 2022, Lotus Roots agency published a statement on Kagawa's behalf admitting to the wrongdoings and allegedly having privately apologized to one of the hostesses he assaulted. He also made a live apology, but stated that he didn't intend to suspend his activities, which led to heavy criticism, and his career was ruined because of his inappropriate actions. He lost a lot of sponsorships, deals, and pretty much most of his income for a brief time, the biggest being Toyota Motor Corporation. He was editor-in-chief for the Toyota company's media channel, the Toyota Times, but when the incident came to light in 2022, Toyota officially cut ties with him, and it doesn't seem like they've signed any new contracts since. He's also lost his sponsorships with Alamin Pharmaceutical and a few programs on NHK, which is a big news outlet in Japan. The thing is, Kagawa only apologized to one of the 2 victims. The second victim released photos of the night the incident happened, but she was shut down by Kagawa's legal representation. She tries to to avoid seeing Kagawa on television, but according to some reports, she has PTSD of that night and struggles to avoid seeing his face on commercials. I think what possibly is the worst part of Kagawa's involvement in all of this is not only was his multiple apologies insincere and incomplete, with the first one being literally from his agency and not himself, but also the fact that he very quickly returned to acting soon after. Not even 4 months later, maybe even earlier, he made a comeback on kabuki stage plays under the name of Ichikawa Chusha. This is also apparently not even the first time he's done this too. According to a Shuken Bunshin article which got wiped but has since been archived, he was part of the 99.9 Criminal Lawyer show, and in January 2018, he had a violent altercation with a female staff worker and struck her on the head. Apparently, this was because he was drinking, and even though he did apologize at the time, he reportedly told her that he was at his limit too. Aside from that, it is possible that Kagawa could still be arrested either way due to a revision in Japanese law covering sexual assault, so in some way, the casting in Kiwami 3 was pointless. The biggest misinterpretation of RemoveKagawa was when Ryosuke Hori came out to explain why Kagawa was casted. There are already some conspiracy theories that this is Sega's decision to cast him, but it was already revealed early on that Yokoyama and the rest of RGG were responsible for that decision. According to Hori, Kagawa was chosen because they wanted a creep to play as Hamazaki, who he and the rest of RGG considered a slimy, creepy, and sleazy character. What was interpreted at the time was that Kagawa's 2019 incident was the reason why they cast him, because they wanted a sex offender to play a creep, but turns out it's because Kagawa has been typecast to play creepy characters in the past in various horror films. I don't mean to throw jokes around, especially in this section, but it's ironic that the person who was typecast as a creep in multiple films reflect who Kagawa is as a person. Someone who is disrespectful and misogynistic towards women, and him being featured in a game that has some really bad depictions of assault is already bad enough. This controversy is also something that both RGG and Sega clearly knows, so it's even more baffling that Hori, despite having hidden replies about Kagawa's casting under his tweets, chose to come out to say this even though he knows what he says will be featured among Western and some Japanese fans, given that this was at the very height of the RemoveKagawa movement. I think this is shocking. This is just what RGG is now. I mean, it's even more shocking given that it took them one game to have this sort of downfall, but I guess in some ways there are always signs. In Infinite Wealth, Ichiban can be engaged in relationships with several romantic candidates like Chitase Buster Holmes, Machiko, and Julie, all of which ends in Ichiban getting sexually assaulted by every single one of them, and his consequence for cheating despite being the victim of all of the romances is being beaten up by all of them. You could argue that this is different since this is a game and also Ichiban isn't a female victim of a male perpetrator, but it's still bad either way, at least I think so, because this is RGG we're talking about. They've made so many sub-stories in the past emphasizing the importance of protecting women from assault and denouncing this type of behavior, especially given that it was a huge plot point in the very first Yakuza game and even Lost Judgment plus its DLC Kaito Files, so this is a sort of a sign of them regressing, I guess, or that they never took it seriously in the first place if they're so willing to show a scene of Kanda strangling a woman to death. Keep in mind, this is the same company that for Judgment removed Pierre Taki from the game, who was meant to play the role of Hamura, the captain of the Matsugani family, because he pleaded guilty to illegal possession of cocaine. But at the same time, they also didn't remove Wataru Kurahashi's celebrity recast in Kiwami 2, Oka Kinoshita. At the time of Kiwami 2's release, this incident didn't surface, so at the time no one knew, but in 2022, Kinoshita was dropped by his talent agency Cactus after he confirmed that he had indeed assaulted 3 actresses in 2011. He didn't get removed in Kiwami 2's 2025 re-release, so there's a major disconnect in how RGG treats assault as a topic, not in just the context of the games, but also how they treat it when it comes to casting actors. I don't want to end this video on such a disturbing and depressing note as this, so I'll try to make light of something on a much more positive and still ridiculous note, because again, this is Kiwami 3 that we're talking about. Yakuza Kiwami 3 and Dark Ties is in such a sorry state for a lot of reasons. One of them is that the game was likely outsourced to other Sega studios to do the heavy lifting, since RGG was already working multiple games at once, like the next Virtua Fighter game and, more importantly, Stranger Than Heaven. While the game being outsourced to other Sega affiliate studios is bad news, given that it was revealed in the credits, I think there is a deeper mystery to be discovered that only a few people has ever brought up. This isn't going to be backed up a lot and is mostly reliant on me having a fucking schizophrenic breakdown when I talk about this game, but bear with me here. Let's start with the obvious. Why does Kiryu have his default dragon style, but also have a really poorly implemented weapon-based Ryukyu style? In Pirate Yakuza, Majima has his default Mad Dog style, but he also has a Sea Dog style, which is a pirate-themed weapon-based fighting style that takes advantage of its boomerang sword and its flintlock that he never reloads. Huh, did they borrow that from Pirate Yakuza for Kiwami 3 except retrofit to Kiryu? The limited heat bars, it's there too. The Dragon Boost, that's Majima's weird madness gauge that replaced the extreme heat or X-Boost system from the previous games. And this one too, it might be a bit much, but think of the weird filters and lighting. Pirate Yakuza had the same thing, although it was a little less buggy since the filters were applied universally instead of inexplicably disappearing during cutscenes or substories. And also the amount of substories lost. Remember, Yakuza 3 had over 100, but they downsized it to just 31. 31 substories. That's a pretty specific number to drop to. Why 31 exactly? Wait a minute. Pirate Yakuza also had 31 substories? Was this game built on fucking Pirate Yakuza? Some of you can argue this is coincidental, but you have the garden, the cooking, and the fishing minigames. Those are poured over from Pirate Yakuza with such little changes, plus the animals you can buy for the Morning Glory Orphanage. What makes this particularly egregious and reinforces the idea that this whole game wasn't built on its own foundation, but rather reuses Pirate Yakuza in almost everything, is this era you used to get if you played Dark Tides or maybe Kiwami 3 early on and managed to reach Premium Adventure. It would say that you would unlock the legendary BGM CD for your music player. Yeah, you could play music while traveling across Yakuza maps since Infinite Wealth. One of the songs it said you unlocked was the Majima Construction Anthem being available, not as a CD to play in the background, but as a karaoke song. This text also appears in Pirate Yakuza because it was fucking DLC for that game. This is so bad. I can't emphasize enough how much I love Pirate Yakuza. Like, yeah, it's a slow burn game and some of the side activities are kind of slop, but Jesus Christ, the fact that they built Yakuza Kiwami 3 on top of the shit they made for Pirate Yakuza, but still actively chose to remove every single combat change they have made since Lost Judgment, plus the Colosseum features they reused and adapted from Gaiden, which keep in goddamn mind that even Pirate Yakuza added changes to the combat system, means that Kiwami 3 and Dark Tides was not the product of a passion development studio that solidified its creativity in Infinite Wealth and Pirate Yakuza, but rather a quick cash grab to leech off the fans who love not only Yakuza 3 but also Yoshitaka Mine as a character by stripping Pirate Yakuza down to its bones, keeping the fundamental changes, and then piecing together what later became Kiwami 3 and Dark Tides separately. Oh god, no! Kiwami 3 was not made with love. I don't know why I wrote this much for this video. That's like an entire thesis for a university course, and this was supposed to be a 15-minute video. The Like a Dragon series, yes, I'm calling it that, is something that's been quite near and dear to me ever since I first touched Yakuza 0 around maybe 5 years ago. I'm not the most diligent or dedicated Yakuza fan because I barely touched 4 and I only ever played Kiryu's chapter in 5, but even then, I spent time getting immersed in the world of every other Yakuza game, at least the ones available on Steam like Ishin Kiwami, the Judgment spin-offs, and Ichiban Saga. I'm one to defend Pirate Yakuza and the previous Kiwamis, but Kiwami 3 is the straw that broke the camel's back, and it only took one game for RGG to destroy the goodwill, at least in the West. That's not even getting to the wider fan reactions in Japan. The Retcons were already hated in the West, but even the fans in Japan were baffled. There wasn't a way for me to put this in the video since it got too big, and while I did mention it at the start of the video and other parts, I replayed Yakuza 3 and it's so much more enjoyable than I remember. A lot of people take this opportunity to talk about how much Like a Dragon took a turn for a worse after Toshihiro Nagoshi's departure. I didn't mention him that much in the video because there's a lot of controversy and debate around how he handled Yakuza vs Masayoshi Yokoyama, the guy I've been insulted relentlessly in this entire video. Nagoshi was the founder of RGG Studios and has been with Sega for 32 years, and for those who might be into this other series, he also created Monkey Ball, so he's a company veteran at Sega and was even the chief creative officer at one point. There's a reason why he's so beloved, and it was really sad to see him go in 2021 when he was pretty much poached by NetEase, a Chinese company to leave Sega and form Nagoshi Studio, which would have led to his debut title, Gang of Dragon. It's easy to put Nagoshi up on a pedestal because under him, Kiwami 3 did not exist and the Yakuza series was maybe better handled under his direction, and better yet, the Judgment series was quite literally his dream project that came true and is regarded as being some of the best games RGG ever made. Some people want a third Judgment game, like I do, especially given how they hinted in a huge side story that Yagami might end up in a foreign country, which we now know would have been Hawaii. But for various reasons, we will never see a third Judgment game. Nagoshi leaving RGG makes a third Judgment impossible. Yokoyama wasn't involved in those games, and Takuya Kimura, Yagami's actor, his wife has blocked any attempt to push for a third game. But Nagoshi, for all you could praise him, he was still the executive producer for most of the Yakuza games, and in some way, he should have been overlooking the major aspects of each game's development, so he kind of enabled Yokoyama's terrible writing in one way or another, especially if you count for Yakuza 4's infamous Saejima and Haruka scene, and Yakuza 5's very disjointed story. This is especially bad now, considering that his debut title, Gang of Dragon, which had so much going for it, taking place in Kabukicho, the same place Kamurocho takes place in, and featuring South Korean celebrity Ma Dong-seok as the main character, Gang of Dragon kind of became this huge competitor against Yakuza or Like a Dragon that many people hailed as something that would be better than anything Yokoyama or current RGG could ever make, especially after Yakuza Kiwami 3 saying stuff like how Kiwami 3's disaster would have never happened under Nagoshi. Unfortunately, this isn't happening anytime soon, with Gang of Dragon's development being ground to a halt after Nagoshi asked for even more funding from NetEase of around $44 million. Keep in mind, Gang of Dragon has been in development for 5 years at this point, and all that he's gone for show is just a bunch of cinematic trailers and gameplay screenshots that look suspect, and the worst part, he already got $40 million to start with, ballooning the budget to $84 million. NetEase was obviously furious at this, in addition to this happening just as NetEase began cutting back on spending, which led to the closure of other studios under the belt. Yeah, it's over. NetEase is planning on cutting funding in May of this year from Nagoshi's studio, so the fate of the game is uncertain. Nagoshi had already spent the majority of that budget hiring such an expensive actor, if not even more actors, and there's even rumors now that he might have had very frivolously spent that money on himself and other shit that basically did nothing to help the game's development. All I'm saying is, it's really hard to tell Kiwami 3 would have played out had Nagoshi stayed, especially given how even under his belt, Judgment had the Pirataki controversy that led to the game being recalled in Japan, and also he was apparently the one who heavily pushed for celebrity casting in all of the games that amounted to random bullshit, starting with Yakuza Kenzan, the samurai spin-off that came out before Ishin's initial exclusive release. We shouldn't put Nagoshi on such a high pedestal, but in saying that, I should also say that I'm being a bit of a hypocrite for shitting on Yokoyama a lot. Before Kiwami 3, people were already praising Yokoyama for everything he did almost as much as Nagoshi is being praised now, at least before Gang of Dragon's funding got cut. Everyone liked Gaiden's story and how it wrapped up Kiryu's story better than Yakuza 6, combined with Infinite Wealth finishing off Kiryu's last hurrah. Everyone also liked Yakuza 7's story, with the tragedy of Ichiban and his loyalty to Miyazato Arakawa. Pirate Yakuza was a story Yokoyama was not too deeply involved in, even if people didn't like the story, as it was written by Tsuyoshi Furata. Yokoyama did write the final scene where Saejima and Majima visits Kiryu at the hospital, which is just about the most universally beloved scene in that game. With everything I've said here and in the rest of the video, the Like a Dragon series legacy is in tatters. People have switched up on Pirate Yakuza and Infinite Wealth, even though both of those games were really good. Nagoshi's independent title is probably going to get cancelled. Yokoyama and Hori are dramatically changing the way they write and make Yakuza games. Kiryu has been shoved back into the spotlight even though Ichiban was supposed to replace him, and Kiwami 3 has cemented itself as being the worst game ever made.
A lot of the people I saw on Twitter who are constantly trashing the game has this really weird thing where they'd be heavily criticizing and rightfully shitting on the game, but then in the same breath, they give Kiwami 3 a rating of 7 out of 10.
I don't know why they did this. Kiwami 3 is easily 2 out of 10. Don't give this game any goddamn excuse. Hell, don't give RGG any excuse. I'm sick of this shit. I might really like Dark Tai's story and writing, but that alone is not good enough to save how low quality Kiwami 3 is as a whole. I hate this mental gymnastics shit where it's always like, oh, if you treat this game as a standalone game rather than a remake, then it's better than you think. No, it fucking isn't. This company has been around since 1998 under different names. fuck, dude, 28 years they've been developing games. You really can't excuse this shit. RGD did cherry pick the reviews for Kiwami 3, picking positives from obscure and random review sites, which people quickly found out, and there's even a post making fun of them by cherry picking the much bigger and more famous gaming review sites that gave them a negative review. I didn't even cover everything they cut or added. It's all of the little details that has gone missing, but it's like how you remove something small from the foundation, but the hole left there isn't small at all, and that small detail holds up the whole game in such a way that the hole can't be ignored anymore. I've definitely missed a lot in this video, but at the end of the day, with all that being said and done, Yakuza and Like a Dragon is a series that I still deeply love, but the stain there's Kiwami 3 and the way RGG is handling game development, I just can't handle it anymore. Lost Judgment and Infinite Wealth were truly the peak of the studio, and we won't be getting the era of RGG back ever again. This game will not be remembered for being an RGG product made with love, but with the same amount of effort put into the Resident Evil 3 remake with how much it cut and how lazily made it was. And that game has a better rating than even Kiwami 3. I used to think Ishin Kiwami was the worst Yakuza game ever, but Kiwami 3 topped that. I don't know how they managed to make an even worse remake, let alone a full-blown game, but I don't think it matters anymore, at least to me. Yakuza 3 is gone, Judgment is gone, Nagoshi is gone, Gang of Dragon is gone, and RGG's glory days are gone. I think the most important thing here is that the love and dedication of the Yakuza fanbase has split in two, and what that ultimately spells out is that the appreciation for RGG is gone, and so has the personal love one could have for the series is gone, as mine did.
So I'm recording this right after I finish editing all of the other parts, and I won't lie, the last part actually made me cry a little bit. Not really a little bit, but this series really means a lot to me, but it's just like this shame what happened to it. But either way, I would like to thank my patrons on the screen, and special thanks to Sai. I know I don't really sound enthusiastic, but it's just that I finally got this done, and I'm happy that this can finally be put to rest, and I don't want to make this type of video again. It's just too much work and too much stress. I've lost way too much sleep over Kiwami 3.